recording.
Good afternoon. I would like to call the meeting to order for the Board of Water and Power Commissioners for the date Tuesday, November 15th. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here. And Barbara, could you please call the roll?
We have Commissioners Parfrey, Moss, and Noonan present.
Just want to let the public know that this proceeding is being broadcast on Channel 35. Currently, the exact date and time of the broadcast is unknown, but if you contact Channel 35, you can be informed of when the broadcast will take place. You can also go to the website, lacityview.org. So, beginning the meeting, I would like to ask our General Manager if he would like to make a report at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Parfrey. Yes, I would like to make some brief comments, and that is turn us over to Aaron Benjamin, our Senior Assistant General Manager of Power, in a moment to follow up on an item that there's been a fair amount of public discussion on of late, but has not been back before the board for a while, and that is with regard to the status of our feed-in tariff. It was actually back in July when we've had a relatively brief presentation to you at that time. There's been a lot of other discussion since that. And I felt it would be helpful to have just a brief update. There's not a presentation on that today. It's not an agendized item, but I thought it would be helpful for Aaron to give an overview of where things sit right now, since there's been a fair amount of discussion about the topic more broadly.
Commissioners, we owe you a status update on where we are, and then next meeting I think we're going to have a much more detailed discussion and a presentation for you. But just to kind of summarize where we are, on September 15th, we've given you the update of all the feedback and the developments that we've had during the workshops on the feed-in tariff in order for us to move forward with the 6 megawatts test pilot, to start implementation on that portion of the program. On November 2nd, we reported to the Council on the status of where we were, kind of similar to the status that we've given to our board, and also discussed the idea of the SB 32 compliance when it came to the rate setting and the mechanism for us to set the price for the feed-in tariff. So we've done that presentation, and our presentation is on our website for the public to access. There was 3 outcomes from that meeting. The Council E&E Committee asked us to look into the administrative costs that we had initially because of the small portion of the megawatts that we've had. We had substantial administrative and setup costs that we've had identified that we were going to go back and take a look at it and make sure that we are on track on those costs. Number 2 was streamlining the application process, see if we can simplify the application process and make it much more user-friendly, and we are going to look at that. And then the third one is to have a detailed schedule of the implementation of the feed-in program, and we are going to come up with these details for us to report back to the E&E Committee. But looking forward, going forward on what our outlook looks like as far as the overall schedule of what we're going to do is the coming up very quickly here is for us to request for ordinance for allowing us to enter into a long-term agreement with the developer of the feed-in tariff projects that extends to 25 years. So that's an ordinance that will allow our board to act on and give us the authority to enter into these agreements. There are similar parallel situations that we have right now on the interconnection agreements and other things. This will be modeled just like those existing authorizations that we had. In 2012, with the new year coming up, first quarter of 2012, we are going to seek the approval from our board to move ahead with the 6 megawatts implementation, and that will come to you with the detailed costs, pricing, schedules, and all the details that goes along with that. We are going to host some training workshops in order for us to kind of help out the developers and provide technical support for the applicants and move the program forward. And we are going to open the program for applications, for solicitation as far as filling up the 6 megawatts that we're going to put forth. The second and the third quarter of 2012, we are going to review the contracts that we've gotten. We're going to review them, we're going to sort them, we're going to evaluate them, and we're going to come up with lessons learned and adjustments that we propose to make to our existing program in order for us to roll the second phase of our program, which is taking it to 75 megawatts, which is going to happen the fourth quarter of 2012. So we have a very busy schedule ahead of us. It's going to start with triggering the 6 megawatts, making sure that we have enough support functions in place and the infrastructure in place in order for us to make sure that when we open it up for the 75 megawatt coming up, that we are in a position to serve the developers and the customers in a way that meets our expectations.
So, Aaron, just to clarify, the goal is 81 megawatts then? Or is that
75.
encompassed in the 75?
75 is included. I mean, the 6 megawatt is included in the 75 threshold that we have. So that's the report, just a summary of where we are, and we will come back with the detailed next board meeting where we are.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear there's progress on this front. Does the general manager have any additional words?
No, we don't. We have a very full agenda today, and that was the only item I really wanted to bring to your attention here before we get into the rest of the full agenda.
Are there comments or requests from my fellow commissioners related to DWP operations? Very good. Well, that brings us to our next agenda item, which is item number 4, which is for public comment. And Barbara, I understand we have some speakers.
Yes.
Could you please ask the speakers to come to the podium?
Okay. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. The first speaker is Vanessa Orozco.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to help my father with translations because his English is very limited, so I'm here to support him in any way I can. My father and all these men right here are owners of different nurseries all throughout Los Angeles County. If I have a list that I could read out to you, just really briefly. And we have members from Lomitas Nursery, Javier's Nursery, Lopez Nursery, Sunior's Nursery, Yolora Nursery, Gardena Nursery, ER Nursery, Wilmington Nursery, Nick's Nursery, Sataquai Nursery, Green Spot Nursery, Lucky Plants, Victor's Nursery, Javier's Nursery. And what we want to, firstly, we'd like to convey our thanks to Mr. Randy Howard and Mr. Armando Parra and all the members of DWP because they have, they've taken our situation into consideration, and I know how valuable all your time is. So to get to the point, I'd like to stress and hopefully get you to understand why we want to, what our nurseries mean to us. Our nurseries are our main means of work, backbreaking work that not a lot of people like to do. And losing our property in an auction means, it basically means going out of business. You're basically putting the people at the nursery out of work because the cost of uprooting a nursery and moving to a new location is a lot more expensive than one can imagine. So basically, we've had 2 meetings with the DWP where we haven't been able to come to an agreement, where we had mentioned that we deem it essential that the auctions of the properties currently being used as plant nurseries, we would wish for them to come to a halt. And we'd like to see eye to eye on a price previously discussed at those meetings. We need to conclude that an auction is unnecessary unless it takes place in a property that is currently vacant or unoccupied. And we would like to also we would like to mention that other companies such as Edison support nurseries by giving them contracts without raising prices. And so there are solutions possible. There are solutions out there. And I wish that the DWP board could resolve this problem for us before having to go further up the ladder and talk to other members. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jerry Ferris.
Hi, my name is Jerry Flores. I'm the owner of Lucky Plants in Carson. And I just wanted to piggyback on what she said. When we first leased these properties from DWP, the prices were at a level where the economy was so much better than it is now, 3, 2, 4 years ago. And we want to negotiate those prices with you guys again. Banks are doing it, taxes down the street are doing it, and we don't see why we can't do that with you guys and help us out in that way as far as our prices and current leases are. And of course, not to lease any of the current properties that are up for lease that are occupied right now. And the reason for that, and like she said, it's basically we've invested a lot of money in these nurseries and the properties that you so generously lease to us. Water meters, fencing, greenhouses, all these things that we need to, we have an investment in these properties. And if you auction these properties, then we have to eat that cost again to load up and pick up to another location. So that's one of the things. I hope you can, help us out with this, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Next, please.
The next speaker is Hector Hernandez. Pardon?
Next speaker, please.
No? Hector Hernandez?
Fine.
Oh, you don't want to? Okay. Then the next speaker would be Tony Wilkinson.
Tony Wilkinson, Chair of the Neighborhood Council, Department of Water and Power, Memorandum of Understanding Oversight Committee. About a year ago, it seems, had a discussion with the previous president of your board about the importance of the agendas that are posted on the website with live links to the documents. And the fact that this is a wonderful asset for our member councils and the general public to refer to documents that are current many months after they are considered here and approved by the board. And we had the dialogue where perhaps the IT department was going to look into the possibility of maintaining those web-based agendas with the live links longer than 2 or 3 sessions. And once again, I want to bring it up. And also the importance of having every item linked. You have one item in which I have an interest, number 20, which is the response to the grand jury, and that document was not available on it was not linked. So it's important to have the links work too. And one other minor comment too about the 6 versus 75 megawatts. I understand that there's a number of folks who are going to perhaps show up at the City Council and talk about the importance of 75 megawatts. I think that your board and the department are already committed to that. But what I think is trying to support the strength of this board in running the department, I think it's very important that this board control the process of when to do 6, when to do 75, when to do some other number, and the city allow this board to have the control that I think you should have over the department's operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Linda Romney.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to request an addition beyond the 2-minute speaking time for the public. If we are limited to the cards and you do not have that many individuals who are requesting to address this commission, I'm requesting that the time be more than 2 minutes. A lot of us have spent 6 hours round trip, and to speak for only 2 minutes does not give us sufficient time. So if you need to put that on the agenda and vote on it, I'd sure appreciate that. Secondly, I would like to give my appreciation, and unfortunately Mr. Salis, the president, is not here, but I appreciate the fact that he has stated and that there has been a change in public forum regarding the monies that has just been rubber stamped previously by this committee. I'd also like to give a heads up and a special thank you to Commissioner Noonan And that is because of the fact that you have also endorsed his recommendation, and you continually state what are the returns on this investment. And I appreciate that we have at least 2 commissioners that are giving equal emphasis to the ratepayers instead of constantly to the monopoly of the DWP. Now I'd like to address the fact that I was before you continually under the California Public Information Act. It's been over 2 years. I come here each and every time, 2 times a month. I meet downstairs. My documents are still not available to me. What documents did I ask for? Very simple documents. One, your commissioner hearing officer, Ms. Noonan, I asked for her critique, for her resume. All that's down there is a third-party document, not even signed by her. I asked, what is the response time that the taxpayer can count on for us when we address in writing the DWP and they do not respond to us? Isn't there a time when they need to respond? Third, why are we receiving the little communication that we get back under someone else's name that party never even wrote? Now that is the opposite of transparency. That is deceit and concealment. Third, Ms. Noonan is an attorney. If she is an attorney and that fact is not disclosed, then it is not. Why is there not equal...
Please wrap up your comments.
Okay, why is there not equal representation for every single person representing the DWP? For the ratepayer, we want equal representation. And in addition, you're violating the Browns Act by locking that door and prohibiting your ratepayers from in advance hearing those hearings as to what's being conducted to decide if there is bias and prejudice on the part of that commissioner. You have no safeguard whatsoever in place for the DWP, for your ratepayers. The DWP is a monopoly, and we, your ratepayers, do we have to take to the street? What do we have to
Thank
do
you. Your time is
to
up.
get through? Please. Thank you.
Additional speakers for item 4?
That's the last speaker for 4.
Okay. So, Barbara, I'd like to ask that item 5 we hold until Mr. Holloman arrives.
Okay.
I want to make sure we have a quorum to pass the meeting minutes. And I'd like to ask the commissioners if there are any items on the consent calendar that they would like to pull for consideration.
Item 10, please.
Item 10, and I would like to pull item 7. So, is there a motion to support the remaining items, which would be 6, 8, and 9?
We do have a speaker card for 9.
We do. Very good. Can that speaker be called, please?
Okay. The speaker for item number 9 is Brian Goldstone.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Goldstone. I am the owner of a small business in California, Express Lens Lab. We were the only other bidder to participate in the RFP for the prescription safety eyeglass program for the LA DWP employees. I wish that the decision to award to the intended contractor be reconsidered. One, under item number 4.11, samples of capabilities, the intended awarding provider was not compliant with that requirement of the RFP that says that each proposer shall submit as part of their proposal up to 10 eyewear samples that demonstrate compliance with Section 2.1 lenses and frames. This particular bidder did not comply with the requirement of the RFP. And therefore, how do you award a contract for prescription safety eyeglasses when no samples were submitted? That should have, in my opinion, resulted in a non-compliance as part of this award. The other part was that I don't feel that the calculations of my bid that I submitted was tabulated correctly. I bid $159 per pair of lenses for the 697 eligible employees. That would have made my bid at $110,823 per year, or $9,235.25 per month. My bid, according to the way that I submitted it, would have been $701.23 lower per month than the intended awardee. So that I asked that that it be reconsidered and not awarded to the intended contractor.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstone. What I would like to do is ask that we consider the items on the consent calendar other than items 7, 9, and 10 pending presentation. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Is there a motion related to the remaining consent items?
Just to clarify, the remaining consent items would be 6,
8,
6, and 8.
6 and 8.
So, okay, I move for approval of 6 and 8, please.
Second.
All right. It appears that items 6 and 8 have passed. Can we please hear a presentation on item 7, please?
Yeah, I'm going to have Mr. Mark Aldrian from our groundwater group present item 7.
Shall I excuse myself?
Oh, yes, please have a seat, Mr. Goldstone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Aldrian, and I manage our groundwater management group here in the water system at LADWP. This item is to share or allocate the cost for water master service in the upper Los Angeles River area. It is an adjudicated groundwater basin. This basin, when the judgment came out in 1979, which basically allocated the resources or allocated water rights to each of 5 different cities, created a water master office. And this water master office oversees the operations of the groundwater basins, keeps track, prepares an annual report of the basins, gets involved in water rights issues if there's disagreements, goes out and looks for pumpers and make sure that they're putting in the reporting on the amount of pumping in each of the basins. And as such, for the past years, from 1979 till almost probably 2003, those services were, the water master was actually an employee of the Department of Water and Power. Back in about 2003, in fact, let me make a correction there. Actually, the water master's office till about 2008, it was a department employee and department staff that conducted all of those services. There was some disagreement on if that was correct, if that was appropriate to have the Department of Water and Power be the water master, and consequently it was decided to go outside, as many of the other adjudicated basins are, where water master is an outside independent agency. Consequently, Richard Slade was hired to be the water master through an RFP process. He was selected. He took over those duties, and at that same time was decided that those costs should be shared and are allocated according to how much each of the 5 parties pump. In the past, when I said that the water master was a department employee, department absorbed or paid for all of those services. So Richard Slade was hired. His contract is now coming up for renewal at the end of this year. Everyone has been pleased with his services, and so we want to extend that contract with him. The contract is actually carried by Glendale, the city of Glendale, one of the 5 parties that pumps. They actually enter into a personal services agreement with them, and this cost-sharing agreement would be just to allocate and enable us to pay our proportion of those costs to the water master's office.
In reading over the board letter, I have a very specific question for you. And I understand that Richard Slade who's the water master for the upper LA River area, in the board letter, it says that the parties will reimburse Mr. Slade for payments to Downey Brand, who's representing the Crescenta Valley Water District. And my question is this: are the payments to Downey Brand captured by the $723,000 a year, or is that in addition to those costs?
No, the $723,000 includes those payments to Downey Brand. And just a quick overview of what that is. The Water Master's Office traditionally has used our local city attorney's office to file court documents, but it was decided that there may be some time that there are issues that they may need to have their own legal support to do that. So you may remember back in May we went to your board for approval to hire Downey Brand. That personal services agreement is being carried by Crescenta Valley. So we would be making payments for the Water Master's Office for their services to Glendale, and consequently for legal services to Crescenta Valley.
Thank you. It could have been clarified in the board letter a little bit more clearly that those costs were being captured. Well, I have no further questions and wish to move approval of item 7.
Second? Or do you need a motion?
Do you choose to make that motion?
Let's make that motion then.
I second the motion.
All right. Item 7 passes. Thank you very much. Who is presenting on item 9, please?
Susanna Reyes, Human Resources, and Amy Willard of my staff. We're here today to ask for approval for the contract for vision service, and this is a department program brought about through a joint labor management agreement to provide prescription safety eyewear for our employees who are exposed due to the nature of their work for eye injuries, and also for reduction of workers' comp costs. We would like to have this program in place again, and for the contract to be awarded to the vision service plan. This is provides a comprehensive eye examination on an annual basis for the employee. This is also a fully insured program where the cost is spread out throughout the year for 3,000 eligible employees who may take advantage of having their prescription safety eyewear through a convenient program that the department provides. And this is in partnership also with the corporate safety program.
So, Ms. Reyes, Mr. Goldstone testified that that the winning bid was not compliant. Could you address that allegation?
To address that, my staff, together with the staff of the supply chain, met with Mr. Goldstone yesterday for a debriefing. And in that debriefing, step by step, we explained to him the criteria that was used for the evaluation of his proposal, and to explain to him how he fared. Overall, he was not the successful bidder. On one of his contention that he mentioned today, which is that the successful bidder failed to provide a sample eyewear, that is true, but during the evaluation, that successful bidder was dinged the 5 points, that it wasn't awarded to him the 5 points that is part of that criteria. And then on the cost, which is a component, one of the criteria for the evaluation, this is a fully insured program, and Mr. Goldstone bidded $159 for 697 employees. That number was never, or was not even in the RFP. We don't know where he got that number. The number that we provided was the 3,000 eligible employees. In addition, there was a Q&A period by which the prospective bidders are allowed to ask questions, and we answered them. There was ample time for him to have asked that question during the Q&A process, and he did ask 9 questions, but he did not ask the question related to that specific component. And then on the cost part of which he was evaluated, the evaluation committee allotted him 10 out of the 20 points. But even if he earned more points in that cost because there are other factors in the evaluation, he would not have earned that award. So we believe that the process has been fair and consistent.
I have a question about the program of the 3,048 eligible LADWP employees that are identified. Is this a voluntary program or is this mandatory?
This is, go ahead. Well, it's based on the classification and their job duties. And so based on their job duties, that's how we know that they are eligible and qualify for this program under the Cal OSHA requirements.
Okay, but are we requiring the employees to avail themselves of the protective eyewear?
We do an outreach. There is an extensive communication plan with them via the divisions when they do their tailgate meetings, safety meetings, that we make them aware that this is a resource for them for safety purposes, that they should take advantage. So the utilization rate is then projected for these employees. Currently, we average about 23-24%.
So less than a quarter of the eligible employees actually take advantage of the program. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Based on the utilization rate.
Hold on. So the I want to make sure, how does this program work then? If we're paying $326 per employee,
Per month.
is that 100% of the employees, or is that only for those 25% of the eligible employees?
That's for the 100% of the employees. It's a department premium that we pay, being a fully insured program. We opted before to take a look at the pay or fee for service, which is for each one if they take advantage, and it turned out that it would be higher and it would be more difficult to project the actual usage on a yearly basis. We would have to go back to the board if there is an increase in the contract, and it's not in the best interest of how the operations of this program would have taken place.
Okay. So when we're paying the vendor, we're paying them $3.26 per employee at a number of, at a minimum of 3,000
Correct.
some odd employees,
Yes.
but we have less than 25% of
Correct.
those employees actually using the product.
Because the risk is spread throughout the number of the pool of employees, and the subset of those employees it's understood that there is a subset of those employees who will take advantage of that.
Why is the program not mandatory among the 3,000 employees that they use these classes?
We can ask the corporate safety, or why is it not mandatory?
The question is, why isn't the eyewear, prescription safety eyewear program mandatory for all employees?
For the eligible employees?
It is mandatory.
It is what?
It is mandatory.
It is mandatory.
So why is only 25% of the employees using the eyewear?
My opinion is, I think that now employees are starting to become aware, supervisors are starting to become aware of the program, and
Let me put the question this way. If an eligible employee shows up for work and they're not wearing the issued eyewear from this vendor, are they allowed to do their job, or do they send home?
We ask our supervisors to enforce the policy. Policy is where there's eye hazards, they need to be protected appropriately. So it's on the supervisor. The onus is on the supervisor to enforce the program.
Okay. Well, it sounds like, based upon the answers I've gotten, is that we have a program that is not clearly being administered the way it should be if we're spending money on things.
Mr. Pasquale. Commissioner Moss, can I make a point? The individual numbers that have been identified as eligible, not all of them are required to have prescription eyeglasses. Remember, this is prescription safety eyewear. This is not safety eyewear for people who don't have a prescription. Not everyone has prescription eyeglasses. Only those individual employees who are required to have prescription eyewear are then the ones that are mandatorily required to have this service and these glasses. The 3,000 represents the number of employees that we have in this department that are performing work that's specific to Cal OSHA as it relates to having to have protective eyewear. What we're talking about here specifically is the fact that we have 25% of the individual employees who have been identified as the 3,000 that are required to wear this because they have prescription eyeglasses that they're required in order to do their job. The other percentage of the workforce are not wearing prescription eyewear, so they're not mandatorily required to be part of this program.
Right. No, I appreciate the clarification, but then it sounds like we're paying for 3,000 eligible employees, but really only about 900 or less than 1,000 are actually, having to use the glasses. So why are we paying for 2,000 extra pairs of glasses, even on the insurance basis? I just would say that this doesn't sound like the best administered type of program that we could have.
Well, when we sent out the RFP, we asked for information specifically on a fully insured program and a self-insured program. The self-insured program is based on individual usage on the individuals specifically who are going to be required to have this eyewear. It came back that the pricing for that was significantly higher than going with the fully insured program. And although I understand your concerns from a cost perspective, it's far less for us to do the fully insured versus the self-insured. And to a somewhat of a similar extent, it's like our health care and dental care. We have employees that we are responsible for providing health and dental benefits for. Not all of them use it, but we're still paying the vendors and the carriers the premium for having them have access to their health and dental care. They don't all use it, but we have to be able to provide it, because if we were going to go on an individual basis and try to insure individually as opposed to our entire workforce, it would be significantly more.
Could we not lower the census then from 3,000 to 1,500 and save the department money that way?
Well, I think it kind of fluctuates based on what the workforce looks like, where we are today, where we are tomorrow, where we are going to be 2 years from now. We've just identified the number of positions in this department that have specifically been identified that our Cal OSHA requirement needs to be mandated. Yes, if the workforce were to go down, our projections would go down in terms of what we think we would need in the future. If the workforce were to go up and we were to start hiring at large numbers at some point in the future, that number may be consistent with where we are today, or it may even be higher. Okay. We're trying to base it on what we know today.
All right. I don't want to belabor this thing, but thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I just had one question.
Please.
Since the program has only been in effect the past 9 years, I'm just curious as to any metrics that you've taken to see if your safety record has improved because we are investing in this program.
I'll let Bradley comment on that, but my understanding is in the 9 years that we've had this program, we've reduced our work injuries by about 50%. But he can give specific details on that.
Well, that's correct. We've experienced a 50% reduction in eye injuries since we instituted the program.
I'm sorry, Mr. Goldston, you had your moment to testify. Is there a motion related to this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, item 9 passes. Next item, please. Who's presenting on item 10?
Item number 10.
I'm going to ask Mark Sedlacek and Chuck Holloway to come up. These are 4 contracts that are being presented to the board today, and these are on an as-needed basis, professional services contracts to assist the department with specialized environmental assessments, which include preparing some of the EIRs and also performing some mitigation work that are required under CEQA and NEPA, and they're also required pursuant to permits that we've received from the various resource agencies.
So, Ms. Pasquette, I read the board letter, and I have to tell you, I was incredibly impressed by the contracting preparation and execution. This is this commissioner's response, and I saw that the mailing went out to over 90 vendors, which was really aggressive, and I want to thank you for that. And there were 61 firms in a bidders conference, again, very aggressive. And the ultimate awards went to some LA City-based firms, AECOM and ESA, and even with MWH, they're located in Arcadia, a very high percentage of their subcontractors come from Los Angeles. So I wanted to flag this one agenda item, and for me, my perception, from what I've read, is a job very well done. But please continue.
And Commissioner Moss, are there specific areas of the contract that you'd like us to address?
Thank you. Well, I want to echo what Commissioner Parfrey was saying. I thought the presentation was really good, and I like the fact that you broke it up into 4 different contracts to give you some flexibility in terms of choosing your task orders, where to place the work. So I just, nothing critical. I just wanted, and also the fact that it is a rather large contract. I didn't want it just to slip by on a consent agenda. I wanted to at least have a little discussion of it. So anyways.
Would you like us to go into the different categories of activity under this set of contracts?
I'm fine with that, Mr.
Yeah,
Moss.
no, in fact, I'd go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second?
So item 10 passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item, please.
Item number 11.
And who is presenting?
Commissioners, there was some concerns last meeting on this contract, and there was a couple questions that we wanted to gather more information. So I'm going to ask Bassam to come up and address the issues that was raised last meeting on this contract.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. At the last board meeting, the board president requested that we look into the subcontracting opportunities, and we did meet with Bella Steel, and here's our finding. The company Bella Steel is a woman-owned business located in Northridge, so it's a local company. And also, some of the items, the heavy rebar requires specialized trucking, so it's very difficult to subcontracting. But the smaller items, Bella Steel did agree to subcontract 100% of the smaller items to a local company located in Altadena that is called Family Transport. So it is a minority business enterprise. So I'll be happy to answer any more questions.
So this was in response to Commissioner Sales' request. You went back to Bella Steel to clarify these things?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's 3 things. Number one is our finding, find out it's a woman-owned business located in Northridge, and also that we attached some photos of the specialized truck, because these are 60-foot rebars, so it's very difficult to subcontract that type of material. But the smaller items, they agreed to subcontract the transportation to a local company.
Well, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Sales, but I want to thank you for going back and clarifying these things. Perhaps to say, you should have told us in the first instance. It would have been a lot easier for all of us. So, anyways, I don't have anything further on this matter.
I'd like to raise a separate point that was brought up at the last board meeting when the board approved to renew a contract with U.S. Pipe and Foundry Company. I had asked for a historical overview as to how long we've been doing business with this entity, and I was promised that. And since you have provided more information about this vendor, I would also like a similar background on U.S. Pipe and Foundry Company.
Okay.
Not now, but
yes,
just
I understand.
for the next separate session. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Is there a motion related to this item?
So moved.
Is there a second? Very good. So item 12.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, item 11 passes. So item 12, please. Who is presenting?
I'll present.
This is the Voyager.
Oh, I'm sorry. Item 13.
Yes.
Why not?
Don't go. Do not go far away.
Yeah, don't go far.
I think Fleet Services would love to have you back.
Michael Sullivan, Fleet Services.
Pizza Turkle and Fleet Services.
This Voyager is a fuel purchasing card. We spoke about this before. This is used out in the field. What we're requesting here is an amendment to the existing contract. and it's taken the existing contract from $150,000 to $2 million over a period of 3 years. This contract, the terms and conditions of this contract were based on the states. So Voyager, even though it's a standalone contract and it was competitively bid, Voyager extended their terms and conditions, which they established with the state of California. The state of California has a mega contract. They have 125,000 credit cards out right now, or fuel cards out right now, and they have an annual spend of about $90 million. So compared to our 500 that we have and our estimated forecast of about 600,000, we're doing pretty good. It's, the other thing with our terms and conditions is we pay zero cost for this, utilize this service. So there's no interest paid, no late penalties, no fees for the cards. We pay nothing but pump price.
Do my fellow commissioners have any questions?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please. Please go ahead.
Most of my questions relate to the report relating to the audit that was done on Voyager.
Correct.
And there's so many things that have not been corrected from the prior contract, including Voyager continued to not enforce specific detailed information that was outlined by the department. There's issues of not maintaining accurate records, and I could go on and on and on. But I'm wondering, with all of these issues that have not been corrected in the past, why would we want to continue working with a business of this kind that isn't receptive to the guidelines that we've given them?
Well, I can address some of those concerns you have. Some of the issues that we noticed were some of the service stations that accept Voyager cards do not produce the same amount of information that some of the other service stations do. So it's not really a Voyager problem, if you will, that some of the service stations don't report out exactly the same information, number one, which we found out. And so what we've done is we've put some check and balances on our side that any time a transaction takes place, whether it be a water or power system, their management has to approve that transaction before it even comes over to us for payment. So that has kind of offset some of these issues that you're seeing.
But in the report that I'm reading, it's stating that the detailed information should have been submitted by the cardholders. So even if it's not printed on a receipt, information relating to odometer readings and the vehicle identification number, it seems that a lot of the employees have gotten either lazy or sloppy, and our guideline to Voyager was to send them back. And to consider that this has been ongoing for such a long period of time without being corrected concerns me.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and we have put some check and balances in place. We have changed the approval card form that each employee has to fill out. We've also lowered some of the limits, and we've set out reminders to each of the business units that that information is mandatory on all their invoices. I, too, obviously have a copy of the audit. The other reason that I recommend that we stay with Voyager or U.S. Bank, they're one of the only, if not the only company that does not charge the department for any usage costs whatsoever, which includes they don't charge you over what the station charges. They make their money on usage from the actual fuel dispense. They don't make it from us. Two, there's no cost to a lost or replaced card. There's no charges to us for late payments. Anytime we have an argument, like you and I are talking about right now, where we have a discrepancy, until we get that discrepancy created and we hold payment, there's no late payment charge on that. So none of the other companies would abide by those rules, because a lot of these transactions will happen outside, a lot of them outside of California. And so you're dealing with different states, their regulations. And so Voyager, in essence, does not hold us accountable until we settle that argument or discrepancy, if you would. Now, we did talk to other fuel card vendors, and none of them would even come close to these type of agreements. So, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, there just seems some very basic requests that we've made about Voyager having printing format deficiencies that truncates data, And it seems for an account as large as ours that those things would have been remedied already.
Well, and I agree with you, and we are, even today, working with them on getting some of those issues ironed out. Will it be 100%? I don't think so, but we're pretty confident that we've got a lot of the issues ironed out.
If I may, Commissioner, some of it falls on our shoulders, and I'll take the blame for some of the discrepancies on the. I've gone through the audit. A lot of the crews, a lot of the fueling that we use on our heavy equipment is for our out-of-town crews, that maintain the transmission lines, and we have towers coming down or repairs that needs to be made. So we have a lot of heavy equipment that moves. And a lot of the time, that procedure that you just described is not followed. So we have to implement some internal enforcement on our side to make sure those are followed, and not put it all on Voyager, to be the final authority for them to kind of police that. So most of the responsibility on that point you made kind of falls on our shoulder.
And I'm just curious, why do some individuals have as many as 5 cards?
They have, what we do is we assign it to the crew leader, so rather than having it go with individual vehicles, so when they move, we have some puller or tract or many equipment, and rather than having it dispersed into the members, we just have it with the supervisor, and then they kind of control the distribution of those cards.
Thank you.
Mr. Moss?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
We have a speaker
Oh,
card on
I'm
this
so
one.
sorry. Yes. Call the speaker, please.
Okay, speaker is Linda Romney.
I'm sitting here listening to this discussion when the existing contract, $2 million, and now they want an additional increase of $1,850,000, and yet Commissioner Noonan is asking questions and bringing up examples that she has asked specifically. You come before this board and you have no substantiation to address Ms. Noonan's concerns. How can you ask for almost another $2 million under this contract and dismiss her requests? You don't do this when you come to the ratepayers for increases in our water and power and turn our services off. Now this is laden with fraud. She stated that you have as much as 5 vehicles available. You haven't answered that question adequately either. This motion should be tabled, and the concerns of Ms. Noonan should be addressed. Please, people, I'm asking you to act in a professional manner and not rubber stamp these increases. You got $2 million, now you're coming back in for almost another $2 million. Something is drastically wrong here. Thank you.
May I?
Please.
I do think it's important for the ratepayers' understanding as to the increase. Would you speak to the numbers as to why we are increasing our cards and what, and what's leading that to happen with projects?
So for the normal usage of a card is about $16,000, $17,000 a month, for out-of-town usage. So we have inspection periods where these transmission lines are out of service, and we kind of send many crews, to do multiple things on the line, whether it's insulator change-outs or clean-outs or stringing different wires at different parts of the transmission towers. So we had, during this period, we had just to kind of list the high level projects that we had on the Victorville Century line. Because of the hill fires, we had to go back and do some erosion control on that line. We also had 2 SIRs on the IPP on the north side of Boulder City that required crews to mobilize, and then 2 SIRs on the DC line north of Bishop that we had to mobilize. We also had an erosion on the Mono line north of IPP between Delta and Mono line that we had to mobilize to fix that. So we kind of had a crowded schedule, and that might kind of level off eventually, but that's what caused the spike on the usage of the fuel.
Thank you. Have we considered, given the results of the audit, to perhaps reduce the duration of this contract or make it contingent upon them remedying some of the issues that were outlined in the audit?
Well, again, like I had mentioned earlier, we have addressed a lot of the, if not all the items on the, in the audit. And I believe we're pretty confident that we'll have these issues addressed. And during the next audit, we'll see that they've pretty much diminished. So I'm pretty comfortable with that.
I would like to have it legally bound, not just hopeful that they're going to remedy. And I understand that a lot of it is on our end, but as for this entity where time and again in the audit it says, this issue continued from the prior audit, I just don't think that these issues should just continue to roll over for another, is this a 4-year contract? I do think there should be some contingencies on expectations on both sides.
Please.
I'd like to echo what Commissioner Noonan is saying. I mean, I noticed that in the amendment that's before us, it says after increasing the contract term and increasing the contract amount, it says all other price, term, and conditions of the contract shall remain unchanged. It seems that this amendment is the time to incorporate the results of the audit into the contract. It's one of those moments in time when you could say to Voyager, hey, look, our audit revealed X, Y, and Z. We want these built into the contract to protect our ratepayers. And I don't think you've taken advantage of that.
Commissioner, I actually have shared this audit with Voyager, and they have discussed internally what they plan to do to try to accommodate our needs. And again, like I mentioned earlier, not all fuel stations provide the information. And in some of these areas where they're working, there may only be one fuel station. And unfortunately, they may not provide 100% of all the data we're looking for. So that's what we're going to lean to, the water power users to get that information for us.
Right. Well, could you have maybe attached a copy of the audit as an exhibit to the new amendment, and with a provision saying that Voyager will use at least a minimum of good faith efforts to resolve some of the issues highlighted in the audit? I mean, that wouldn't seem to be too difficult to do.
Yeah, I'm sure we could work with Voyager on that.
Well, maybe we should defer the approval to such time that amendment is made.
Do you have, Pete, do you have a time limitation on this right now?
We do.
And could you explain that, please?
Our plan was to come back to the board at the beginning of next year, actually with a formal contract request. And because of the spike in usage, that was unanticipated, unscheduled overtime or unscheduled work, if you would, it's depleted a large majority of the funds, which doesn't give us the actual luxury of going back to the board or coming back to you next year.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes, Pete, I would assume it would be possible for us to do as Commissioner Moss had recommended, attach that to that, and this board could have a formal resolution to request that be done. That becomes a condition of approval, and as legal counsel, is that my correct interpretation of what could be done?
Yeah, basically you would approve the contract with the addition that the audit would be attached as Exhibit A, and they shall utilize their best efforts to meet the concerns expressed therein.
So
I'd be willing to formulate a motion on that basis.
Would you please?
I would. I'd like to move that we approve the contract with the express condition that the result of the most recent audit be attached as an exhibit to the contract with some good faith language in the contract saying that Voyager will meet the call-outs in the audit.
Absolutely.
And has the board secretary captured Mr. Moss's amendment?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So there is a motion on the floor, and is there a second?
There's a second. However, I would like some backup material just on the other agencies that do this work that you state would charge us for certain aspects of managing the process. I'd like just to understand what that premium is, what that savings is. And I also would like some historical information as to how long we have been working with Voyager.
Okay, we can give you some verbal information right now with one company that did come to us, Ride Express, if you'd like, or if you'd like something in writing, we can get it to you.
If you would like it to hear it now, I'm in favor of that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan?
We met with Ride Express. Ride Express actually holds the cards for other companies like Mobile Exxon, 76, other fuel card systems. Basically, it all comes back down to Ride Express, so we talked directly with them. And they have a lot of processes that they can assist us with. Like Voyager is enhancing their program because they are apparently getting another contract with the state, and that's really where our horsepower is. We're being offered the extension of their terms and conditions. I mean, when you're talking about 125,000 credit cards versus our 500, they're the ones with the horsepower. So they're trying to keep up with what Ride Express is doing. The one difference is that the contingency to offer all of this with, say, zero interest is that you have to pay on time, you have to have all these timely conditions, and when you don't, you're looking at a 25% on pending balances. You're looking at late fees. You're looking at monthly fees of each card is a $2 usage for each card. So it can have the potential to skyrocket.
Okay. And how long have we been contracting with Voyager?
How long have we been?
We've been piggybacking off of the state's contract since that's the only way you can get with Voyager. They wouldn't deal with you directly, I believe, since, and I can get you exact date, but I believe it's 2005. But I'll look at the actual history on that and get you some more concrete numbers if you like.
Okay, thank you.
So, Pete, you'll communicate with Commissioner Noonan through the board secretary with that information?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor, and is there a second?
Second.
All right. I'm pleased to report that item 12 has been approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I notice in the audience that we have a representative of Councilman Reyes. Ms. Soriel, did you wish to address this board? I don't know if there's an agenda item associated with... Wait, then we have to...
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was actually coming to listen to the discussion on the water quality. I think it's item 21.
All right,
and originally there was going to be a board action, but my understanding is just for information purposes.
Thank you very much.
So I'll hold my comments unless something comes up that I feel needs to be addressed now. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask that the board take a 5-minute break, and we shall be back momentarily. Thank you.
Recording.
Good afternoon. Calling the meeting back to order of the November 15th Board of Water and Power Commissioners. And Barbara, can you call the roll again, please?
We have Commissioners Parfrey, Moss, and Noonan present.
So we have a quorum. And Barbara, the next agenda item is?
It's item 13.
Item 13.
And I do have a speaker card.
Who is the speaker, please?
Speaker is Linda Romney.
Is Ms. Romney present? Would you like to speak before or after the presentation?
I prefer, if I might, after. Would that be adequate?
That's perfectly acceptable.
Thank you.
Can we have a presentation, please, on item 13?
Yes. Item 13 is a request to add $2.3 million on a contract that we already have with the General Services Division. This contract is for commodities for structural steel, ferrous and non-ferrous items that we have on the contract. And the contractor, the way the pricing has been pegged on this is based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics index. Over the past years, the contractor has lowered the price based on that index by about 10 to 15%, about 4 times, to kind of match the price index that was published. And this is an ongoing contract that we want to have for another 2 years with the additional funding.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions related to this item?
Just, do you need the steel?
Yes.
Okay.
All I need to know. Ms. Romney, please.
I have a question regarding the wording, where it states that it will increase the contract amounts for the second, the third, and the fourth optional periods. And that's a total of the $2,355,000 for those 3 periods. Is that correct understanding?
Yes.
Okay. You're stating that the reason for the increase at this time, in other words, have these expired, or are they, is this another thing as we were talking about the item number 12, where there was just unanticipated overtime and expenditures? Or has this come for a renewal?
Does that conclude your comments?
No, I'm asking a question.
I understand.
Yeah.
Is that the substance of your comments?
Basically, that's what I'm asking, and I'm asking why the amount is another over $2 million.
All right, thank you very much.
And I'd also like to know if this was put to an open bid.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Romney. Mr. Vanderman, could you please answer Ms. Romney's questions?
This is an existing contract with General Services Division that the department is piggybacking on, and we're using the same conditions and the terms that the General Services contract has. What we do is we have periodic projects that come on board. We're doing a lot of the water projects, and we have several power projects that use the commodity. And based on those projections, we're just projecting $2.3 million additional funds that we need to purchase these commodities going forward for another 2-year period. That's all.
Mr. Moss?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We thank you very much. Item 13 is approved. The next item is item 14. And who's going to be presenting, please? Mr. Adams? Now, traditionally, Marty, this has been a very highly contentious item for us to discuss, and we've come to a good resolution. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I hope to portray it differently than that this time. Good afternoon. This is before you is a 20-year lease with Crowley Lake Fish Camp for the operation of the concession at Lake Crowley. Lake Crowley was built in the early 40s, and originally the concession there was operated by the Department of Recreation and Parks. For about 50 years, they operated that facility with a lot of difficulty. It was remote to the city of LA. It was a seasonal operation. In our estimation, it probably costs the city and probably really the Department of Water and Power a couple $100,000 a year as a loss operating that facility. In 1991, we went out with an RFP for the first time to have a commercial vendor operate the facility. It operated for a number of years to get back on its feet, and during that time the department received a lease payment, and now it has become a profitable business. This is akin to our leases where we have businesses on our property, except this business is operating on our behalf. They are the face of the City of LA and Department of Water and Power to about 100,000 visitors a year who visit the lake. It's one of the most popular destinations in the Eastern Sierra. What we have in this lease, different than our previous lease, well, first of all, the last lease was for 15 years. One of the issues with the lease is the ownership of improvements, and so we've strengthened the language. All the improvements that are at the lake, that are, except for the ones that aren't bolted down, like the boats and a trailer or two, everything at the end of this lease belongs to the Department of Water and Power. So there's probably about a $1.6 million worth of improvements that are turned over to the city. Because of that, we've also extended this to a 20-year lease so that the vendor can make the investments required and plan their capital so that they can make those improvements and plan to break even at the end of the lease. During the time of the lease, we will collect a minimum rent of $12,000 a year, but realistically what we collect is 10% of the gross earnings, and that's standard for other leases. We have other campgrounds that Inyo County operates on our property, and 10% is a standard. In comparison, Forest Service, I know at June Lake is collecting about 4% of gross, and they're requiring that take be put back into the facilities at the marina and that sort of thing. In this case, we're collecting 10% and requiring the facility be paid for independently of that by the vendor. So we're coming out pretty good on this. Having a vendor at the lake is saving the department probably about $250,000 a year in maintenance. The lake patrolling, trash pickup, water quality protections. In this lease, we're adding quagga mussel inspection. That's saving us a lot of manpower. That is all put upon the concessionaire to be responsible for. So we have substantial savings in terms of costs that we would incur if we did not have somebody operating the lease and somebody operating the marina on our behalf. I think those are most of the highlights. We did, you mentioned previously there were some issues with this. We did put out this RFP in 2006. We had 2 bidders at the time. There were some concerns over clarification of insurance requirements and some other issues. At that point, the City Council decided not to award the lease, even though this board did. And so we modified the RFP. We strengthened the insurance terms. We added the quagga mussel inspection, clarified the language on facility ownership, and went back out. This time, although we did a lot of outreach, we only got the one bidder. The other original bidder did not respond this time. We're not sure why they never responded to any of the phone calls or inquiries. We all contacted the person personally. We had other inquiries, I think, from somebody who operates Diamond Valley or that for MWD. This, because of its remote location and the size of the operation, the other vendors were just found it was kind of out of their scope. We know that the folks that operate Convict Lake were looking at this. They have about a dozen boats in their fleet. There's about 95 boats in the fleet at Crowley. This is just, it's just kind of a one-of-a-kind thing. And so there's a very limited playing field, and a lot of people thought this was out of their scope.
So the current manager of the lake, is this the same contractor that's applying?
Yes, it's the same contractor. When they, and the owner of the company, matter of fact, the actual lake manager is here today. If you hand the speaker card in, I know. The actual owner of the company has been in the recreation business in the Eastern Sierra for about 32 years and managed other facilities for the Forest Service and other people. And so they put together a good proposal because they have experience in this field. There's a very limited playing field. You find some national campground vendors and people like that. They looked at this project and it just didn't really have a fit. A lot of people don't want to operate a marina. They don't have the experience. And the other thing at Crowley is that even though it's a seasonal operation, it's open for about 6 months out of the year. It's only profitable for 3 months. So all the money they make, they have to make in 3 months. The other 3 months it operates at a loss. And then the manager and other staff, the manager actually lives on site because during the course of the winter, if you're not there winterizing and taking care of things in April when you show back up, half the stuff's frozen and broken, and so it is a year-round operation for them.
So, Marty, I wanted to probe on one question, and it has to do with quagga mussel prevention. And this is something that we have to take very seriously. And so I'd like to hear how some of those efforts are embedded in the contract that we're considering today.
Yeah, what we've done, it really came to our attention here probably about 4 or 5 years ago with the quagga mussel. And what we've done is we've actually, through the assistance of Crowd Lake Fish Camp, installed fences, put in barricades and so forth to restrict access for indiscriminate launching of boats. So for the most part, the only place that you can launch boats now is out of South Landing, which is controlled by Crowd Lake Fish Camp. Currently, this past 4 years, we have had a staff person up there doing quagga mussel inspection. It's one of those things that just not wanting to kind of give up the range yet on that, but we've written it up in this lease where they have to provide us with a program for quagga mussel inspection and control. And the idea is that, here in the near future, we'll be passing that on to them to perform that operation.
And what does that inspection look like? How rigorous is that?
It's pretty rigorous. They come in, they feel the sides of the boat to see if there's any scaling or anything like that, because the little baby villagers, they feel like almost like sandpaper on there, so it could get by pretty quick. They go through, they check all the ballast tanks, they check all the bait wells, see if they're dry, if they're not dry. They actually have them disinfect them. We have, if there's any vegetation hanging from the trailers, the trucks, or the boats themselves, there's a steam cleaner up there that our people actually use to steam clean the boats before they're allowed into crowd.
So we're going to phase out our presence. We'll still oversee the inspection initially, making sure that it's done correctly. Right now, we have one person there most of the season, but during the opening week, we have a large staff, and we also inspect ahead of time in Bishop, and then we'll be transitioning that. But under our guidance, we're not just going to turn over wholesale. Make sure that the fish camp people can take care of it.
Yeah, one thing that we've done with the inspection program is if we actually attach it's like a meter read tag where you put it through the electrical meters with a band on it that says quagga on it. And we attach that to the key or the hole that the boat attaches to the trailer with. And as long as that seal's not broken, okay, they can re-enter the lake without an inspection, because that tells us that boat hasn't been off the trailer anywhere else. And so what they do is the people are leaving the lake for that day with their boats, they actually attach those seals, so it speeds up things. But at the beginning of the season, when everybody's coming and no one has them on there, is when it gets really hectic.
Well, our aqueduct is one of our most important assets,
Yes, it is.
Clarence, so you know that. So we want to make sure we have no infestation of quagga. So thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Commissioner,
any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. In addition to the fleet that the operator has of boats, someone can bring their own boat into the lake, and that's where the inspection comes in?
Correct, yes. And there's a lot of people bring private boats. They also have a marina with a number of slips that people bring their boat and leave it for the season as well.
I see, and there are campground facilities there and all that?
Yes, campground facilities.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a tackle store that has been built. There's other improvements that are called out and required as part of the lease. And one of the issues is to try to get as many improvements done before opening season this year.
Right. Are they going to put in some sort of inn or cabins or anything like that as part of the improvement?
There's no plan.
There's no plans for cabins. I think they are talking about adding development to the actual, like the camper section for it with some more wet facilities and so forth, water, sewer, electric. And there's a possibility that they'll actually go in maybe partnership with a company that actually rents trailers and all, and have them set up there where people could just come up and kind of a turnkey type deal. They can rent that trailer for a week or whatever.
Okay. One thing that happens is nothing happens without our approval out there.
Right.
And then any permanent improvements are the property department of water and power. So we'd like them to be successful, because their success is also our success.
And at the end of the day, the expected revenue that DWP is going to get from this agreement, how much of the cost to DWP of having Lake Crowley in our portfolio is offset by the expected revenue?
Well, probably Do we spend any money on this ourselves?
We spend a little bit of money, obviously, right now with the Quagga Mussel inspection program and having, an employee up there during their operating hours, especially during the first 4 months of them opening. But the actual lease, other than administrative costs and so forth, it really doesn't cost us.
So we don't have any other
They'll be
costs
taking care
associated
of
with the lake?
Most of the rest is security and the policing of the lake, the maintenance of the remote restrooms. They patrol the lake. They go to remote coves to pick up trash. Those are costs that they're offsetting for us. Okay. So ultimately, the peak we made was about $70,000 one year. It was a good year. This year, their revenue's been down. They had a tough time with the weather. I mean, the first 2 months of fishing season were really windy and cold this year. So it's really variable, but we expect that it'll never be down to the $12,000 a year. It'll always be some amount of profit. And then with about $1.6 million of estimated facilities. One thing I should say in the facilities is important. One of the good things we had in the last lease, we didn't have anything to guarantee the condition of the facilities. And the question is, what if somebody lets them run down? So there is a retainer arrangement now in the lease to guarantee that facilities are maintained. So at the end of 20 years, the facilities will be worth what they're supposed to be worth, and we could enter a new lease with any vendor, and they'll be usable. So that's one thing we've changed in this.
There was one aspect of the lease that did puzzle me, though, which is in the termination. We're giving the lessee a 30-day termination right, which struck me as a little incongruous with a 20-year lease. Why is that in there?
Most of it's our standard lease language. We don't, if this lease terminates early for any reason, or we can't, every 5 years we renegotiate the price, there will have to be renegotiate the value of improvements, and there's a process with appraising those. We would have to turn around and staff the facility or reduce the amount of operation. The lake has to be open to the public because it's state water. But we don't have to have a marina that's operating. We could close down temporarily. There'd be quite an outrage with that, but we could scale back operations until we had another plan in place.
And I think another thing too with the 20-year lease is, one thing that we got criticized for, I think, in the first RFP that we put out back in 2005 was kind of the mixed ownership of improvements. We owned some, the lessee owned some, and it was unclear really what was going to stay actually as part of the improvements. And so entering into this 20-year lease allows us to get all the improvements under our belt and our ownership, so that in the future when we do put another RFP out, it's not as difficult for somebody else to actually compete on it, because we'll own the improvements and they'll have to maintain the improvements. Right now, and I just got an email from one of my colleagues up in Bishop. One of the bigger companies, they thought was that they just didn't want to put $1.5 million out at the beginning of a season here to have everything up and operating.
Did the lessee request the 30-day termination right?
No, that's a standard language that we put in our lease.
Well, doesn't that kind of put DWP at a bit of a disadvantage vis-a-vis relations with the lessee? Because if you get into a dispute, the lessee could just threaten to walk in 30 days, and if there are obligations that DWP has to take care of the lake, that's going to put an awful lot of pressure on DWP and maybe make us a little less likely to push our positions.
Yeah, I guess I guess you could see it that way. I guess the other thing too is we'd be walking away and potentially from those improvements and so forth, and would they have to work out with us? They have a substantial investment out there that that would be left in our care, custody, and control.
It sounds like it was a well thought out lease. It's just a little surprising that on this particular thing, maybe for next time you do a lease, don't go with just the standard language, but think through something credible and major like a termination right, because that can put you upside down and backwards with respect to your tenant real fast. I've seen it happen before.
I'm sure it can.
So.
I'd like to echo that comment. A 30-day lease termination just is not market under any circumstance. So I do think that our real estate group really needs to review that language, and I would be happy to share my market knowledge with them in that regard. And, I do think that this is really a win-win situation for everyone involved. But also, you keep talking about the improvements to the location, and in real estate, typically, an entity can make improvements, but the landlord ends up with the improvements that were made. So I don't think that's a unique feature about this situation.
Yeah, I would say it's unique from this situation that we have it written up now, but the previous lease, it left it open, and it was unclear who had that ownership, so that's why we had to correct it.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm just curious, who writes these leases? it's
Jim, are you writing them late at night?
Actually, we have 4 real estate agents up in our Bishop office that work with the city attorney, with Kevin Ryan to develop this language and so forth. We try to keep things as standard as we possibly can, because obviously, it can get complicated if you start.
The better way to go is 30 days for us to terminate them.
Oh, okay.
180 days for them to terminate us.
That's not a bad idea.
That's probably better for us as a formula.
I understand.
I
Thank
understand
you.
we have some speakers. Do the commissioners have some additional questions?
No, I'm done.
Barbara, can you call the speakers, please?
Okay, the first speaker is Sandor Winger.
Commissioners, my name is Sandor Winger. I'll make my comments brief. I have been, as a user, using Lake Crowley for probably 40 or 42 years, not only myself, my family. I have been following this contract very closely because of the importance and the impact it would mean to a lot of different communities. In reading over all the aspects of this lease, as a citizen, I see it as a win-win for the business and bringing in revenue for both the City of Los Angeles and Department of Water and Power. But more importantly, and it's been addressed, and I think clearly needed addressing, is the Quagga mussel problem. I view that lake in the eastern Sierra Range as an environmental issue that my family enjoys. And I believe that the Crowley Lake Fish Camp Incorporated certainly has developed and will continually maintain a quagga mussel program, which I have volunteered and I've helped with, especially on opening day. Even my boat, when I bring it up there, I can't take my boat on that lake unless it's inspected and sealed. My engine has to be raised. Every bit of those engine fittings, the water drainage system must be inspected for quagga mussel. I originally come from an area in the country that was intensely polluted, and I grew up with that. And I see the need for a very strong quagga mussel program, which has been instituted. And I am very pleased that this commission, this board, believes in that also. From a family standpoint, not only my children are bigger and uglier than I am, now my grandchildren are able to enjoy the entire facility. I recommend that this board approve item 14 as recommended by the Senior Assistant General Manager and the General Manager, and look forward to continually taking advantage of that entire facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Lane Garrett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time on this. I'll also be brief. Really, I'm just here if there were any questions that you might have that I might be able to answer. Other than that, the
TWP gentleman covered everything pretty well. I can assure you we're not going anywhere in 30 days. As they said, we wouldn't want to walk away from what we've built there over the last 19 years for any reason, really. So I understand your concern, but that's not a concern.
We'll just strike that then.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. So, thank you very much. Item 14 passes unanimously. Now, I recognize in our audience we have members of LA, representing LA City Council members. We have representatives from the Council Legislative Analyst's Office. So, if possible, I would like to take item 21 out of order, and if we could review it at the present time, I very much appreciate that. So, Mr. Nichols, can you lead us through that?
We'd be pleased to do that. Commissioners, as you're well aware, and I think anyone who's been following much of the department's activities, we spent virtually the entire summer and sometime after that going over a number of the cost items that the department faces on the water side, power side as well. We're talking about water here today, and it's part of some 30-plus public sessions that we had speaking to a major transformation that we're going through in our water system to comply with legal mandates, as well as a number of other things that we believe we must do, and additional items strategically that we believe that we should do. And those items all lead to a recognition that we have inadequate revenue to meet those programs, and those matters will be discussed now after the end of this calendar year upon our ratepayer advocate being established following last March's initiative vote. We've been looking through a number of our programs, and one of the items that is really key and over which we have virtually no control in terms of timelines is compliance with our drinking water quality. So I'd like to give you an overview of those key elements of our drinking water quality program: compliance, our funding levels associated with that, and what that means with respect to some fairly near-term actions that we'll be looking for from this board. And I want to clarify, there is a board presentation, of course, that is in your agenda package right now, that in a word form that goes through a lot of detail on this. I'm going to hit on some of the highlights of that. We are not looking for an action by this board here today. It's an important issue. We believe it deserves some time and airing and consideration. I believe we have some speakers here as well on this, from what I understand. So I'd like to go through this today to give you some background, and we will be back to you on this matter at the next board meeting on December 6th. Well, I want to give an overview of just clear understanding of Department of Water and Power's commitment to water quality, what the Safe Drinking Water Program overview, that is what the program is, not just in terms of what we do, but we also, in addition to that, what we're obligated by law to do. Talk a little bit about what is somewhat of a unique opportunity, which comes in timely, because in terms of the fact that we're actually seeing a interim reduction in our water rates at present, and how we'll be proposing to time that reduction with very important action that will later be taken or considered by you related to our water quality. Now, first of all, I hope it's abundantly clear to all of us that irrespective of what legal obligations there are out there, having safe drinking water quality is the #1 priority for our water system. We're always on it. We pride ourselves in doing that. We have some excellent professionals, I think world-class professionals on top of that, and I think Jim McDaniel is Senior Assistant General Manager responsible for the water system, just does an excellent job of staying on top of this issues and everything else that he does with the water system as well. But some of the things that we do in terms of how we want to undertake them are also influenced by timelines that are mandated, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. We do have to comply with standards, and we at times have to take actions very specific in terms of regulations and, in this case, compliance orders that are necessary to meet them. And that's really why we're here today talking about this now, as opposed to talking about this in more detail next year, next calendar year. You know, this is an issue that we discussed extensively this last summer in terms of our mandates. There are a lot of mandates that we deal with. Water quality is a huge portion of those. And one of the primary reasons that we're here today is because our water system revenues are actually declining right now, and we have limitations on specific factors. Our water quality component of our rate is one of those that's fixed at present, and we don't have enough. We'll talk in more detail in a moment. We don't have enough revenue coming in from that water quality factor to pay for the commitments that near term we're looking at. And so we're looking right now at the prospect to recognize that our rates are going down right now. We'll talk a little bit about why. And we're looking to increase our water quality rate factor of our overall water rate structure by 35 cents per 100 cubic feet, while our other rate factors are down. And we think it's an excellent, somewhat serendipitous opportunity to be able to do that, but incredibly important to take this action when we look at what we're facing on this next chart here. This chart on page 5, I think you have handouts with you as well, that mirror our presentation on the screen, and that we're looking over the next 5 years, and again, this is something we discussed extensively this summer in our public rate workshops, that we're looking at $1.1 billion of water quality improvements for our drinking water quality compliance over the next 5 years. And that's, so when you see this bump up there, those 4 next years are the largest, that grouping is the largest capital commitment that we have made in our water system in DWP history. And I mean, the good news is we don't have to recover all of those capital dollars in that year. Think of those as being kind of the mortgage, the principal amount of the mortgage. We will convert that and allocate those over a number of years, effectively like paying off the mortgage over a 30-year period of time as we issue debt and capitalize some of our expenditures on that. But we don't have today, in the annual revenue that we're recovering, enough to pay off, if you will, the mortgage that it takes for to pay for that hump of those costs, and that is why we're here today. Take just a moment to go over a little bit on our drinking water quality program history, then I'm going to turn it over to Jim McDaniel. But as I indicated, we discussed our whole water quality requirements extensively this summer in our workshops. Had a lot of interest in that, a lot of discussion among our stakeholders and customers, and I know some of the board members themselves weighed in on that. We have a 20-year compliance agreement that we're working our way through. And it has a lot of activities, and Jim will give a little bit more specifics on this, but we have to continue to cover the rest of our open reservoirs. We have to bypass some of them in that process, the ones that we are not covering. We need to build some new reservoirs to replace the ones that we're bypassing, so we have enough storage of water in a way that meets our water quality requirements. Our largest reservoir in our system, the Los Angeles reservoir, is going to be converted to an ultraviolet light treatment, and we've kicked that project off earlier this year. And while it's a very innovative process that's saving us a lot of money from what it could have been, it's still a big capital commitment there as well. And then we have to convert and reduce our chlorine use. We're moving from chlorine to chloramines as part of this whole transformation process of meeting our new water quality requirements. There's a lot of other, dozens and dozens of other items, smaller items with that, but those are the big ticket items. And I'd like to turn it over to Jim to to give you a little bit better feel of what those items are and the costs associated with it.
Okay. So on this slide, we got a picture here of our San Ynez Reservoir improvements under construction. So far, along the road to completing our compliance agreement, we've invested about $414 million to date. And that's gotten us 5 of the 10 original reservoirs taken care of. We only have 5 reservoirs left. San Ynez, pictured here now, has a nice floating cover on it that's protecting the water quality for the Pacific Palisades area of the city. The requirements that we have on the other 5 reservoirs that's noted on the slide, it is a U.S. EPA and State Department of Public Health requirement, and it is part of a compliance agreement that the department has entered into. And each of those 5 remaining reservoirs has specific milestones, deadlines associated with them. On this slide, you see the list of the remaining 5 reservoirs: Silver Lake, Ivanhoe, Upper Stone Canyon, Elysian, and Los Angeles Reservoir. The first of those deadlines is for Silver Lake Reservoir. That's coming up here in December of 2013. Primarily, we're going to be able to remove Silver Lake from service by providing new pipeline capacity to the Silver Lake service area with the First Street trunk line, the new pressurized river supply conduit, and then a bypass line around Silver Lake Reservoir. And those projects are all moving ahead and are on schedule. The Ivanhoe Reservoir deadline is the next one that's coming up. And to meet this deadline, right now, predominantly, we are operating off of Ivanhoe Reservoir. So that's the primary, that small reservoir is serving most of the whole Silver Lake area. So it's a very key facility. In order to take that one out of service, we need to have new storage built. And this is where this Headworks reservoir comes in, the new 110 million gallon reservoir that we're contemplating to build up by Griffith Park next to Forest Lawn. This is the one where the first phase of this contract, as you recall, we talked a little bit about this, and is coming up, and I'm going to talk about the individual contracts here on a slide coming up. After Ivanhoe, we do have the Stone Canyon and the Elysian deadlines, and then the Los Angeles Reservoir is the final project. The good news is that probably on Los Angeles we're ahead of the curve because we've changed from the original plan of having to do a whole lot of earthwork there to more of a treatment type alternative where we're going to cover the reservoir with the shade balls and then treat the water coming out of the reservoir with ultraviolet light.
Jim, just as a clarifying point, though, despite the fact that we are able to get that latter one done earlier, that doesn't allow us to slip those other deadlines.
It does not allow us to slip the other deadlines. Each milestone stands on its own.
And Jim, can you tell us the cost savings by converting to this other way of protecting LA Reservoir?
For LA Reservoir, the kind of preliminary planning level cost estimates to empty the reservoir, and to empty LA Reservoir, since it's really our last large reservoir, we have to build a whole nother reservoir to serve the city while we drain LA Reservoir. So it's building a whole new bypass reservoir. It was draining it, building a dam across the middle of it to make it into 2 basins, and then put what would have been 2 of the largest floating covers in the world. We estimated that was going to be in the neighborhood of around $600 million, and we think we've cut that price in half with the shade ball and the UV solution at the reservoir. So it's a substantial savings.
And that's good news for ratepayers.
That's very good news for ratepayers. Moving on to slide 9. This is a list of the major contracts totaling almost $600 million that we have coming up within the next 12 months that are going to be necessary for us to stay on track with these projects, or with the schedule that we have laid out for us. Because of the nature of the way the milestones were laid out, a lot of these are kind of piling up on us, one right after the other. with the environmental work and everything. Everything has a critical path schedule laid out for it, and we're very tight on almost all of these. Probably the tightest that we have is the Headworks Reservoir. You notice that it's a $230 million package. This is the project that we are going to deliver through the construction management at risk project delivery methodology that's currently being used at LAX for the Tom Bradley International Terminal expansion. One of the reasons that we chose construction management at risk is it's going to allow us to accelerate the construction schedule and keep this thing on track. Fortunately, one of the other characteristics of CMAR is it gives us a little more flexibility. Because we do not have the funding right now to issue a $230 million contract at the next board meeting, we will be coming to you with the initial phase of that contract to get the CMAR contractor on board. They can start putting bid packages together. The idea would be then that we would bring a major bid package, probably in the neighborhood of $100 million, to the board in March, at which time we would hopefully have funding in place to cover the cost of that contract. So that's one of the ways that we're kind of managing this, is by breaking that contract, kind of phasing it in, not really breaking it up, but phasing it in as we bring it to the board. But you can see that these other contracts are going to follow shortly thereafter. The shade ball contract, the bids have opened on that. I'm happy to say that it appears that we have some local bidders on that, so that's looking good for us. And then you can see there's a number of other major contracts that follow currently after that. But the bottom line on this is right now our rates won't support this level of contracting. So the need to have a rate action is urgent.
Jim, may I ask a quick question? I'm curious if this creative way of trying to fund the Headworks project by breaking it down into smaller component contracts, does that ultimately add to the cost of the project, or are we finding ways to save money by breaking it down to smaller components?
You know, I think that the construction management at risk is overall is going to save us money, but there probably is a cost to phasing it. I don't have the quantification on that yet because we don't have the contractor on board, but it probably, based on the research that we've done with this project delivery method, it probably would have been preferable to bring it to you all as one package, but that's just not going to be possible.
Thank you.
One more question. What type of penalties are involved by not meeting the deadlines potentially?
We can be subject to direct fines from the Department of Public Health of up to $25,000 a day per occurrence. We can also be subject to citizen lawsuits for noncompliance with regulations, as well as other liability issues that the city attorney has outlined.
And we could be subject to some very bad headlines.
That would be true, Commissioner. But so we're not talking all doom and gloom. I think there is I think some some good news related to this, and that is, while most people probably don't recognize it necessarily, that you spend a lot of time looking at your bills each time they come out. Our water rates actually, at present, or at least temporarily, are going down. They'll be going down about 6% this fiscal year compared to the last. We've had the vast majority of that has been in the fact that we had a really great water year. We had a big snowpack last year, so we didn't purchase as much water from Metropolitan Water District. We've saved that. Our customers continue to maintain their conservative use of water as well. As I early and often try to remind everyone that our customers have just done an excellent job of still being the lowest per capita water users of any major city in the United States, and it's a good thing that's helped us. It's helped to save everyone money and help everyone keep everyone's bills down from what they would otherwise be. All in, and we have temporarily stopped expanding our water conservation and recycling programs a bit. That's affected as well. With the increase, we're talking about an increase in our water quality factor. This 35-cent increase that we're looking to add in here. We've got net about a 6.3% reduction in rates, and able to still give us the money that we need, not just to do this immediate phase one of this headworks contract that Jim mentioned, but it also allows us for the board here to then have the comfort to know when come next March, when we do then approve that next big piece of that contract management at risk that Jim described, that we would have with this a 35-cent adjustment would have revenue sufficient to go forward and to pay for that portion going forward. And the reason of wanting to act now on this is that absent making this change, number one, we're maxed out in our water quality factor, and our overall water system revenue is going to go down by $75 million. So we're going the wrong direction at a point in time when we're running into those historic costs that I was showing and talking about earlier on. So to get these projects going forward, it's unreasonable, inappropriate to ask this board to approve contracts and not be able to tell you, yes, we have the revenue to pay for those as we go forward. This next table is the chart here is a bit busy, but it has some very important information on it, I think, to explain where we're at. This is last fiscal year, these three groupings here. This is our last fiscal year, the current fiscal year, and the next fiscal year that begins next July of 2012. These lines across here, this is the average water rate. It varies periodically during the course of the year as our costs move in and out. But it starts at $3.80, average last year, $3.83 per 100 cubic feet is our total system average rate. This is what it's been going down to right now, and what we're proposing to do is do a 35-cent increase to the cumulative cap for our combination of our water quality, our water security, and our water reclamation. That then brings that rate back up. Still, on average, for this next fiscal year, we're going to be over 6% lower than last year's average system water rate. Now, going forward, assuming we do nothing else, and we're not talking about, we're not yet addressing what we'll be discussing next year before this board and before council and ratepayer advocate after the beginning of this next calendar year. We'll be talking about other items, but if we did nothing else, an action would bring us to either this bottom line, if indeed we enjoyed the same type of good water year that we had this past year, and we simply don't know. It's kind of looking all right now, but we literally don't know until we get through the winter and find out where the snowpack is. That would be this line here. The difference in the shaded areas is if we had an average water year, would be the top. So, and it could be worse than that if we had a very dry year as well. But all in, this would be the next fiscal year of what our costs would be, and they would be on average would be higher than this year, but better than the prior year. If we had this year's type of water, it would be a bit above, about 3% above last year, if we had an average water year based on the approval of this factor. So this is just it's a structural change to our water quality rate adjustment. We would be looking at a 35-cent increase all in that allows us to increase our water quality expenditures to meet the requirements of our program that takes us from to a $3.59 per 100 cubic feet, which is still, like I said, it's over 6% lower than our 383 was last year. So to kind of put this in context on what it means for a customer rate, because percentages don't also always mean an awful lot. Comparing for the typical resident, the 1,200 cubic feet per month, the high-use family of 24, twice that level, or a small commercial that's 100 cubic feet per month. Today, or I should say last year, our last full year that we completed, recall this is when we started, right after that we were starting our rate consideration, was about $44.50 a month is what our average person would pay. Today, with the adjustment that we're talking about, in this current fiscal year, we would be looking at that going to about $40.30, or about a 9.4% reduction. Next year, if nothing else changed, we took no other action on any other aspects of our rates, and in consideration of that would be a separate, distinct action taken next year, it would be about a $1.44 increase compared to where we started last year, or about a little over 3% increase compared to our last full fiscal year. And you can see the corresponding changes for higher water users. So it's a critical program. Of everything that we have in our water system, this is the one thing that has hard and fast deadlines. We have a compliance agreement that has hard deadlines. They have all of these actions that have to be taken, as Jim has described that. Our present rate structure doesn't support that. Our present water quality factor is used up right now, and we can't go above that without an approval by this board to make that change. And as I indicated before, we can't make a recommendation to you to go to that next step come March of next year for this major next piece of the Headworks project, of our compliance project, without having revenues, and we would not have the revenues absent this kind of adjustment. So I'd like to turn over a bit to Lorraine to talk about kind of what this means. We would bring this back to you December 6th right now, when it's informationally only. And Lorraine, take a minute to talk about what would be the next steps after that.
Sure. So just to be clear on the process for the commission to understand, and those who are listening from the audience, the rate restructuring that was just covered by Mr. Nichols is an ordinance change. And because it's an ordinance change, it's not something that the commission can do within its exclusive authority. And once the commission considered it, and if there is a positive vote, then the council will therefore consider it. And so it's anticipated, after it comes back to you in a couple of weeks in December, on the 6th, then it will be considered during a process that council will determine after this board determines it. So unlike something that is within your jurisdiction to exclusively approve for rate recovery, and there's the possibility that council can assert jurisdiction and review it, there will be a mandatory consideration by council. And we anticipate, and our hope is, that in addition to this robust process, today's hearing, December 6th hearing, that council will have the time to go through their own robust process as well. And that we'll work very closely with the commissioners and with city council to make sure all the information is effectively communicated and shared and explained and provided at the level that they need it to be provided. We're also, as Mr. Nichols mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, while this is being brought to this board today, and it's one of our priorities, and it's one of the major programs to be funded, it's also going to be considered before council on the same timeline that's been published for their schedule for the RPA appointment. And so we anticipate that they will receive this at the same time that an RPA will be appointed.
I guess I'd like to make another point, and that is this is the only item that we're talking about having you consider for your action in December. This past summer, we heard a lot from those parties that attended the 30-plus public workshops, as well as those who weighed in on surveys of wanting greater water pipe replacement in our system to get back up to a more appropriate replacement given the life and the age of our pipes. We want more access and greater increased recycled water, or our Purple Pipe program. We had a number of what we called strategic investments about ramping up beyond what we're already doing in that area. Similarly, in doing more in water conservation, there was great support for doing more stormwater capture as well. All of these are part of a local water supply program, and in addition to that, there's a multi-year program that we would need to do to clean up the San Fernando Valley aquifer, San Fernando groundwater aquifer, so that we can use that to store stormwater and other sources, local sources of water, all of which require a multi-year program to do that, which is in part, big part of why we were talking about a 3-year plan and 3-year rate action, which would be considered after the first of the year, after the ratepayer advocate is on board. We're looking to continue to pursue those programs as robustly as we can with current funding levels through the balance of this fiscal year, but we don't have funds to ramp that up beyond this fiscal year without additional consideration. That is not part of the water quality determination, and it's something that we would be certainly, based on what we've heard, we'll be recommending for your serious consideration when we get into the full rate consideration process, which we hopefully begins the early in next calendar year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. I appreciate the words of encouragement related to the local water efforts. Is it possible to go back to slide 5 for a second? So either Jim or Mr. Nichols, if you could comment going forward after 2019. I mean, according to this chart, we're done. Is that an accurate assessment, that there's sort of a balloon in the mid-decade where we have to meet these water quality requirements in terms of expanding our trunk lines, covering our reservoirs, but that enormous investment to transition from open reservoirs to covered reservoirs will be completed?
Yeah, I mean, what we're showing here is the capital program for the drinking water quality improvement. So that's that $1.1 billion over the next 5 years. And as far as those projects primarily associated with our compliance agreement, it would be over. Knowing the world of drinking water quality, though, there's always new things on the horizon. They are not mandated yet, but there are a number of things that are being talked about. Stricter regulations for volatile organics, which will impact us as with our groundwater in the San Fernando Valley. I think there's a lot of look at the arsenic standard currently, and we've got very, very effective arsenic control from naturally occurring sources in the Owens Valley, where we way exceed the standard. We're well at less than half of the federal standard, but potentially there could be requirements that would require us to do new treatment processes at our treatment plant to address that or other contaminants in the water. So, you know, it's hard to tell what the future could bring, but as far as the compliance agreement, the list of projects that are on the compliance agreement, this would be the cash flow for those.
I guess I wanted to give the impression that this is a major investment to do a major transition in the way that Angelinos receive their
Right.
drinking water. And
I mean, probably second only to the time when we built the filtration plant and started filtering the water, because before that we didn't even filter the water coming to the city. That was probably I would consider probably the biggest change and biggest improvement in drinking water quality. This is second only to that, and actually in cost investment to do it, it far exceeds the cost of building our filtration plant because of the numerous projects that are going to be required.
And my understanding is that there are virtually no major water systems, districts, departments that currently have open reservoirs, and that's being phased out.
Yeah, it's under the newest laws. It's no longer an accepted practice. Even in New York, which had some unfiltered supply, they're investing $1 billion on ultraviolet light treatment, much like what we're going to be doing at the LA Reservoir Complex. So, and as far as the number of open reservoirs in a major metropolitan water distribution system, I've talked to probably most of the managers of the major systems across the country. Nobody had as many open post-treatment distribution reservoirs as we did. So we had the most of those to deal with of any agency that I'm aware of.
Well, I'm just glad that we don't use Echo Park anymore as a reservoir. I'm glad we've made some progress. So, do the commissioners have some questions?
No, this is very helpful, so I appreciate you taking the time to review this information with us.
And Barbara, at this time, we have some speakers on item 21.
Yes, I do. I have a couple of speakers. The first speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Tony Wilkinson, Neighborhood Council, Department of Water and Power, MOU Oversight Committee. And as you commissioners and general manager knows, the Oversight Committee is actually a city agency. We don't take positions on rates as an oversight committee. We do actually do some advocacy, and that is for information access. And we got a lot of information access in the department's most recent community rate presentations. We're very thankful for that. It was an unprecedented amount of access. And that's exactly what the neighborhood councils need. The neighborhood councils also are very strongly in support of the ratepayer advocate that was overwhelmingly approved in March. And they want it to operate properly. But there's an increasing concern, as I talk to my friends in the neighborhood council movement, about projects that are either being stopped or mothballed or not going forward at the speed that they need to go forward at while we don't have rate coverage. And what we really want to do is to have the ratepayers advocate deal with the big issues at the Department of Water and Power, issues that go out 5 years or more. On both sides of the fence. And we really don't want to interfere with that by having issues like this rise and become problems. I can speak, however, as an individual, which I want to do now, and say that I'm very concerned about the water quality issue, particularly if we have to go to bond and we don't have the rate coverage, or if issues come up in the press about our failures. We've gone so far and done so much to recover the department's great reputation, and we already have a great reputation in water quality. I hate to see that threatened by not making these investments, and I support them.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Jack Humperville.
My name's Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council and a variety of other things. Normally, you wouldn't see me here calling for an interim increase in water rates. I think that's somewhat surprising even to me. But I'm prepared. I'm prepared to support an interim rate increase of 5% in our water rates, provided that it's subject to a later review by the ratepayers advocate once it's appointed, and provided that the increase does not fund any underground reservoirs at Elysian Park or Upper Stone Canyon. These monies will be used to maintain and repair our infrastructure and fund our environmental mandates. As a way of background, my issues with DWP have revolved around the politics surrounding DWP, whether it is the increase in the water power transfer fee, pet projects, the IBEW labor premium, and some of the environmental issues and their impact on rates. My issues do not involve the professionals at DWP, who I consider to be hardworking people who work hard to keep our water running and our lights on. I'm prepared to support this rate increase for two reasons. First and foremost, I trust Ron Nichols, and I trust his management team. He knows the utility business, and after 295 days on the job as general manager, not counting your first free week, he has developed a reputation for being direct and forthright with the neighborhood councils and ratepayers, as was mentioned by Tony just a few minutes ago. And while I may not agree with him on all issues, I am not the person in the hot seat having to make the tough decisions. The second reason that I support these interim rate increases, DWP needs the money to continue to fund the repair and maintenance of its infrastructure and to fund its environmental mandates. The delay of the proposed rate increases is not the fault of DWP. Over 8 months ago, 78% of the voters approved the ratepayers advocate. Rather, the blame is the result of the inaction of Mayor Villaraigosa and the Garcetti-led City Council and the IBEW 7. But from a business perspective, it is important that the DWP be able to go about its business in an orderly manner. And if it does not have the adequate funding, this will result in additional costs to the ratepayers. DWP is requesting a 21.5% rate increase, a water rate increase over the next 3 years. We're talking about 5% here, which is about 20 to 25%. Put another way, the DWP has on the table a rate increase over the next 3 years for water and power of about $1 billion. This interim rate increase would be about 5%, would be less than 5% of the total rate increase that DWP is proposing. DWP is a very important asset for the Los Angeles economy, and it is paramount that it be maintained in a proper manner. That includes its infrastructure. I don't want to have to see our DWP infrastructure be like our LA streets. Thank you for your time, and thanks to Ron and his management team for their efforts in supporting transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Linda Romney.
First, I'd like to take issue with the slide that alleged that 24 HCLs is considered high usage for a single family. It is not. If you're living in a home and you have property that needs to be irrigated, if you have growing items, 24 HCL is not high for a single family. Furthermore, why do we need a standard of drinking water quality for irrigation and for flushing our toilets? That percentage is 50%. So why 50% of the water that we're using, which does not need to be of that standard, is being currently upgraded to the very highest? Something needs to be done. There should be some parameters here as to what water we're using in those particular areas. And lastly, as far as that survey is concerned, and I did attend those workshops and I did check and see what was online, it merely asked, what would you like to see be done as far as these items? Weigh in. But it did not have anything as far as the cost as the ratio, nor was there any point on that website where you could make comments, no, we do not want our rates increased. If this is going to cost us additional money, no. Furthermore, when the decision was made limiting the ratepayers as to when they could water their lawns, there was a problem in the internal system resulting in breakage. That had nothing to do with the ratepayers. However, the ratepayers now have to come back and bear the burden for those individuals, which quite frankly, a half a point lower IQ and they could have been a tree, to decide that with that much consumption coming through at those limited periods of time, what it would do to our infrastructure. Please give this a lot of thought. You know what's happening with the economy, and a 30% increase, that's what it showed there, 30 for a 24 HCL, and for low commercial, a 30% increase in water is much too exorbitant in this depression. Thank you for your consideration.
Barbara, are there additional speakers?
That was the last card for 21.
My fellow commissioners, do you have any further comments on item 21?
No, I just want to thank the General Manager and Mr. McDaniel for the cogent presentation.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next item, which I believe is item 15. I believe, Mr. Lamp, you are making the presentation. Thank you.
Item 15 is Amendment 6 and ratification to the contract with IBM for software licensing, software subscription and support, and monthly licensed software charges. This is a 5-year contract that we have had, and this is an amendment to extend it another 5 years. So let me go through a little bit of background. This is essentially the same slide we presented at the time when we talked about the Oracle contract. At that point I said we had two big direct contracts, IBM and Oracle. This essentially highlights the two areas where IBM software is part of our portfolio standardization on document records management and asset management. A big cost associated with the IBM contract is the software support for the mainframe environment. There are two areas there. There are some software licenses that we own that we have to maintain, much like the Oracle scenario. But we also have what are monthly license charges for software that you actually can't buy from IBM. You essentially have to lease on a capacity basis to operate the mainframe. So this slide sort of gives you a picture of where we're intending to go, assuming that the budget situation doesn't require that we push out some of these projects further, to pull us out of the mainframe environment. So some things we are, as you well know, we're moving the CIS project forward now, so we can move that off the mainframe. That dates back to 1974. The materials and inventory systems are part of the Maximo project. Those date to the early 80s. The retirement system has been working for a few years, have moved part of their system off. They're expecting by 2013 to move the remainder of the retirement system off the mainframe environment. And then the rest is predominantly the ERP project, which we had briefly talked about when we did the Oracle presentation. The mainframe environment's expensive, and one of the things we do not want to we're trying to avoid is ending up with just a couple stragglers on the mainframe that require a very expensive infrastructure for relatively little value to the department. So why the contract? It is our enabling agreement to purchase maintenance, to lease the mainframe operating software. It gets us the access to new versions, which become very important for the document management and the asset management systems, and the normal things we get with maintenance. The contract increase has been very minimal. We're going essentially from a first 5-year expenditure of 17.7 to a projected next 5 years of 19. So it's a total of 7.3% over the 5 years. It took a pretty extensive amount of negotiation to bring it to that level. And some of that was spurred by the discussions we had to go in as budgets started to constrain significantly last year. It's also one of the reasons why this contract is a little bit late getting here. The software basically covers 3 major new things we use. FileNet, where we've moved all our official records management over to, so all our records retention, scheduling on documents, all the board documents, etc., are stored there. Maximo, we've talked about. Rational is particularly useful in some of the big projects for tracking requirements, linking them into testing procedures, etc. This contract does anticipate some dropping of the mainframe use and some greater use of distributing computing over the 5 years. And it has some capacity in it through further discounts with the enterprise licensing agreement to extend our use of Maximo for materials management, for FileNet for some accounts payable improvements, and potentially, and these aren't definitely things we're going to do with IBM, for some additions in our cybersecurity and system monitoring areas.
Are those purchases included in the 19 million? Or would that be supplemental to the contract?
We would not have to increase the 19 million to do those. So we built some capacity there. If we go elsewhere for a couple of those, then we expect not to spend the full 19 million.
Okay.
This gives you a quick picture of the distribution. 31% is essentially mainframe operating licenses. FileNet is about 29%. 18% is related to Maximo. And then the mainframe software itself is another 12. So the mainframe represents about 43% of what we anticipate the contract expenditures over the period. Our contract technically expired October 31st. There were two factors. One was the negotiations we had to do to bring it down to the 19 million as our budget was constrained. And the second was IBM hit us with a software licensing compliance audit beginning in, I think, April. I think they notified us in March or April. And we wanted to get through a little bit of that to make sure there wasn't any big surprise coming out of the audit. And we're about 95% through that, and things are looking quite good at this point. There would be a major disruption if we can't continue to operate the mainframe. Some of our absolute core systems are there. This does allow us to keep operating under an extension of the enterprise licensing agreement, and that gives us some discounts on the maintenance charges.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are we anticipating retiring the mainframe?
Yes.
What year is that?
I would say probably 2017, somewhere in that range.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's it. That's the last slide. It's a critical contract. I think we've negotiated ourselves into a pretty good place with it, and we need to move forward.
Well, building on Commissioner Parfrey's question about the retirement of the mainframe, wanted to sort of touch base with you a little bit on the big picture so that I'm clear about the overall context. We have two big software contracts, Oracle and IBM, correct?
Yes.
And so this is as you alluded to at the beginning, this is the second part of getting our contracts in order for the medium-term future.
Correct.
Okay. Where will we be when this contract's done in 5 years? Are we still going to be, in a sense, on an IBM system, or are we going to have an opportunity then to put things out to a more competitive bid with other providers?
Okay. So let me separate a couple things. On the hardware side today, we buy hardware from a number of vendors. Our server structure, our Intel-based server structure tends to be HP, although we have bought at least one sort of engineered appliance from Oracle Sun, because it was basically Sun hardware, now Oracle. And then some of our higher-end server structure, we've used IBM, and then we have the mainframe from IBM. So we've done some diversification across the hardware platforms. On software, where we see, at this point, we see essentially Oracle providing the customer information system, and because we didn't want to be in the split house of trying to deal with Oracle and SAP, we expect the ERP software to be there. IBM we see as a long-term partner in terms of the asset management environment, the document management environment, and some of their system monitoring, processing, and other tools. So I expect you'll see contracts come back for both Oracle and IBM. The IBM contract will look substantially different if we are successful in weaning ourselves off the mainframe, because that large part of this contract will go away. We have a lot of other software. You see some software contracts that are specialty purpose things that are either existing pieces inside the department. For example, our electric outage management system software, the electric model software, some of the work management software that they use on the power side. So it's not just those two, and some will come with specific contracts. Most are now being handled through the software commodities contract, which we've brought here a couple times and we'll be bringing back again in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Noonan? No questions?
No, I thought it was a very comprehensive presentation and report, so thank you.
Barbara, do we have any speakers for this item?
None for this item.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Pleased to report that the board has approved item 15. At this point, I would like to call a recess so that the board may go into closed session on one item, and then we will return to open session in the near future.
We take it in here or go?
We're going to retire to the other room. Thank you. We shall be back.
It would only be commissioners, Mr. Nichols, and the board secretary.
recording. Good afternoon, and I apologize for our brief delay, but the session of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners for November 15th, 2011 is back in session, and our next agenda item is item 16. So, Mr. Lamp, you're going to be introducing this item as well.
Right. Item 16 is a amended optical fiber lease with Globecast. And then we have two, the next two items are also fiber related. And because of the questions over the last couple times we've had fiber discussions, we thought it would be appropriate to do a little bit more of a presentation on what we're doing with the fiber optic enterprise program. And then particularly to Commissioner Moss, I need to apologize to you because last meeting I misstated something that added to the confusion, and my staff has straightened me out on that, and I brought Ken Kinsey, who manages the program with me today to keep me from wandering off track, and we'll address that specific issue of the IRU and the master agreement toward the end of the presentation. So let me begin. The primary mission of the Fiber Optic Enterprise Group is data transport for water and power, particularly SCADA, the departmental telecommunications, our security systems, and to provide the major backbone for all our data communications inside the department. Our secondary mission is to generate revenue from fiber optic capacity not currently being used in the primary mission by making it available to city agencies, businesses, and educational users. We had a goal to help increase competition for bandwidth and data transport services in Los Angeles, and in doing so assist businesses and ratepayers, and to assist in economic development. The value proposition to the department itself really comes out of two things. One is, if you were to step back and say, if we didn't operate all this fiber, what would it cost us to do the communication links we would have to buy in the market? And we estimate that at about $9.6 million a year. In addition, we are generating from our private, our work with commercial customers, an additional $6 million a year. So the overall net benefit is in the range of $16 million annually. We offer three types of services. Mostly what you see are dark fiber agreements. And basically what that means is we are splicing from point A to point B, a continuous run of a fiber strand for a customer. The customer puts their own network equipment on the fiber. That is, they light the fiber, they manage the equipment, they install it, they maintain it, they own it. We support them in a limited way in that if there are issues that they think are fiber issues, we will help diagnose, determine whether the problem's really in that spliced piece of fiber or whether it's, it points back to their equipment. And frankly, the vast majority of the times it comes back to their equipment and they deal with it. A second service we have is what we call Metro Ethernet. That's a long-distance, high-bandwidth Ethernet service where we're basically connecting office buildings and businesses across the city to each other, allowing a business or a university or a hospital complex or others who have properties that span, that are geographically disparate to have a unified network. And we essentially provide that Ethernet transport. A lot of the people who use the Metro Ethernet service are doing it to connect to either a telecom provider or an internet service provider at one of the major point of presence buildings in the city. A single fiber path, because we have the electronics on it, can support many, many customers. The third service we operate is Video Man, and Video Man is the specialized digital video transport and it's particularly for movie, television, and post-production film services in LA. And that really takes a very specialized set of equipment in addition. And each of these services has distinct markets. So let me talk briefly about the market. So this, just to give you a sense though, this is a little picture of some of our customer base. So it's pretty diverse. You'll see hospitals, universities, and a lot of the entertainment and telecommunications industry as part of our base. Revenue-wise, the vast majority of our revenue today is from dark fiber leases. And we can talk a little bit more about why that is. When you look at it by customer, the biggest, sort of our telecom providers, as people who take fiber and light it and then essentially resell services to diverse customers, generally businesses in Los Angeles, is our biggest market. So by providing them fiber, we are helping the competition inside the marketplace there. The second biggest one is entertainment. The third are the educational institutions, and it goes down from there. So, this is not the first time we've talked about fiber at the board. There were many rounds before I came here 4 years ago. We've had a couple extensive discussions since I've been here. And there were some pricing principles that came out of the previous board reviews that we use going forward, have used up to now. One is all circuits had to be profitable that we sold. Second was, generally speaking, well, first, any construction costs had to be covered within the initial term of the agreement. And so, if the initial term is 5 years, we make sure that it's covered within 5 years. If they have an exit provision earlier than that term, then there are essentially penalties to make sure we recover all the construction costs, all the upfront costs, as part of termination if they terminate early. Typically, it's been done within 2 years. And then clearly, as we have demands for our sort of limited staff resources, commercial circuits that coincide with the fiber, with the department's fiber needs, are given preference over other commercial work, because our primary mission is meeting the needs of the water and power systems. So, the markets. Dark fiber market. We have relatively few competitors in dark fiber. AboveNet, Quest, Wilshire Connection are among the only people who are doing dark fiber leases in LA at this point. Edison does not build fiber for customers. They do leasing of some of their excess dark fiber, but only to competitive local exchange carriers, so they will not directly lease to any commercial customers. Our fiber customers tend to be either service providers or customers with substantial real property investment, because it's a very costly thing for them to light, just do a long-term lease and light the fiber with their own equipment. Cost recovery in that initial period has not been an impediment to customer requests in this market, and we'll differentiate that from the other markets in a second. The dark fiber leases, once they're installed, once we put the fiber in, we get it spliced together, it's provisioned and tested the first time, there are very few additional costs to LADWP. So when you think about that, because our customers are putting in large investments, they want a long-term lease to generate their investment. The long-term lease is in our benefit because we have relatively little costs afterwards. If they renew it, generally that means we don't have any new costs associated with it other than the administrative costs of going through the lease process. And it becomes essentially just a revenue stream. for us. Now, so with a few competitors, what constrains price? Well, what really constrains it is the cost of acquiring bandwidth some other way. So we have people who approach us about fiber, and when they look at all the costs, at the way we price it, that they find the investment is too high, they're not sure about how long they're going to be there, they can get their immediate communication needs done on a shorter term thing in the bandwidth market. That constrains our price. If we raise it too high, we drive more people that way and lose that revenue. So pricing. One of the things that's very clear to us is that our price is higher than our neighboring communities. So both Burbank and Santa Monica lease fiber, dark fiber. We do some work where a customer needs to go into one of those places where we do basically a splice at the boundary to their fiber, and we split revenue going forward. But our pricing is higher than theirs. Our pricing is far higher than long-haul fiber providers, which makes sense because in that way. We have evolved over the years a tiered pricing structure based on fiber miles. So the number of strands and the number of miles they want drives the price. It's tiered because essentially there's a lot of cost for those first few miles because the building entrance piece is the highest cost for us and highest effort. And it tiers up, so as you get to the if somebody's doing like a 40-mile run, they're paying sort of 10 miles at a higher price, the next 20 miles at a little bit lower price, and the last thing is starting to approach long-haul fiber pricing. But our minimum annual charge is $24,000, and that sort of was to discourage or to set a floor for somebody who wanted to go a very short distance, which was expensive for us, but on a pure fiber mile charge didn't get us where we needed to be. And we talked about construction cost recovery. And the prices tend to be stable because the utility of it is limited only by the capability of network equipment. As network equipment capacity or price performance goes up, and that restraint by the bandwidth pricing is there, it tends to keep that very stable because we're continuing to see in this industry price performance improvement of the equipment that can light the fiber. Whether they're operating it or we're operating it or it's a third party operating it, that tends to constrain the price. Okay, Metro Ethernet market, very competitive. Time to market's very important for people. The service is not available from other providers throughout Los Angeles. Okay, there are areas in LA where it's very hard to get high bandwidth services. A lot of our customers, I said, trying to go to key points of presence, 1 Wilshire, 1200 7th Avenue, a few other key carrier sites. Many customers seek connection to locations outside of Los Angeles, and they want to do it through a single provider, and that's a part of the market that today we cannot compete in. And it's one we've had discussions about how do we get work into that market. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then pricing is tending to be downward because of the cost performance of the technologies, and I think you can all see that with your broadband connections. If you have a cable broadband connection, the speed you're getting now for set price compared to what it was 10 years ago is definitely improved. So our pricing is bandwidth only. Distance isn't a factor. We do it tiered based on the capacity, the speed people want. The 2-year recapture on construction guideline is more stringent than our competitors, and that limits our ability to compete in the marketplace, and that's one area we believe it's important to look at. We've done a biannual pricing survey with a third-party firm. What we found is that the market dynamics are such that the price points set based on the survey and our guidelines with the 2-year recovery often makes us non-competitive in the marketplace, and we know that by the bids, what we pose as pricing to people and what pricing they tell us they got from the person they went with when they didn't go with us. And so our Ken staff is out talking to customers on a regular basis, and we know when we're asked for quotes and then they go somewhere else, we get a pretty good set of feedback on what the market's doing. And we believe that's really providing the best intelligence in this marketplace, because this is a very competitive, one of the competitive marketplaces. Video transport, basically for the entertainment industry, a lot of movement toward capacity for uncompressed HD-capable circuits, and we're actually seeing people looking for stuff sometimes even beyond what you'd consider your normal HD environment. We are unique in that marketplace in terms of establishing network capability. That is, not just having a point-to-point offering, but essentially ability to switch video away. So that's really where we're headed in it. It's priced based on video transport circuit, and our major competitor right now is AT&T, who's doing a lot of point-to-point stuff, and we think, frankly, they're this is not a regulated market, so they don't have to necessarily recover their full costs on what they're offering, and we do. We think our position here is really based on the network offering, and that's what we've been building out with the new work we've been doing for uncompressed HD. So let me go to the issue that Commissioner Moss has raised. So I realized in the 2 times we've talked about it, I've given you 2 different answers. So we'll clarify that. And FOE's practice has been that the IRU pricing is reevaluated at each renewal point of the IRU. So if it's a 5-year or 1-year options, each year we do that, review that. The language in the master agreement was put in there because we have a charter requirement that they have to be reviewed at a minimum of 5 years, and that's really what that language was intended. But you were right, there was an apparent conflict between the 2 languages. Our customers, because we've always done the IRU reevaluation, haven't any problem when we've done that. Nobody's come back to the master agreement and said, oh, no, you can't do it this way. But on these 2 contracts, we sat down with the city attorney, we added some language to the master agreement. We took that, we went back to each of these customers and got them to sign off on that changed language in the master agreement. So it was very clear throughout the documents and consistent. They were not surprised because, as I said, these were both long-standing customers, and they had always had the price review annually at the IRUs. So hopefully we can put at least that part of the question of how we price fiber and how we adjust prices aside. And so for both SohoNet, which is item 18, and the Globecast main agreement, that modification has been made and signed off as an addendum to the agreement before the board, before it came back here. Yeah, and it's been incorporated into our master, so all future contracts you see will have this adjusted language to address that problem. So for the future, what we recommend that we continue the dark fiber lease program. we really want to work on partnerships to maximize our ability to serve customers with needs to connect outside of LA. And that allows us to sort of maximize our strength, which is our fiber network, and maximize the partner's strength, because frankly they can move forward a lot faster than we can. We have some limitations in our contracting. Let me see, did I skip that? Yeah. So, this process is a lengthy process, bringing things to the board. For the master agreements, it's going to council. If we wanted IRUs over 5 years, we'd have to take those to council. Some of the other cities, Burbank has a single evergreen master, and they basically can do IRUs at the GM level. Those aren't things we can do here. So in a partnership arrangement, we might be able to help deal with some of those competitive issues in the market where it's a rapid market. In the telecom industry, it's pretty standard that when your agreement runs out, you go to a month-to-month, and that just stays until forever. We can't do that under our current structures. So we do have, and then the 2-year recovery guideline, when it's in the Metro E environment, does cause us some issues. So we think the partnership thing can help us both be more competitive in the Metro E environment, but particularly address the intercity issue. And we've had discussions with a couple providers in the past. One interested in some of how you get video from here to some of the key video distribution centers around the country. They needed a local LA presence. Similarly, for some of the Metro E circuits going into Orange County or into some of the San Diego area, suburban, or even suburban areas outside of LA. Each of those, given our structures, we'd need to develop some form of RFP for. So that's a pretty extensive effort, but it's one we believe is worthwhile, and we'll try to pursue that as a way of strengthening the returns we can get out of our fiber network. The second thing that we think is important is to relax that 2-year guideline for cost recovery on the Metro E circuits. And that's really, in some ways, got to be a little bit more discretionary. So there's some places we build where we're building into a major office building or a complex. There may be multiple customers there we could pick up. But the first one ends up getting caught with the whole build for 2 years. And our competitors don't do that. They look at that and say, is there an opportunity cost there? Can we stretch the recovery over a longer period and still make it worthwhile? So that is one we're going to be doing some more work on, and we'll come back and talk about that one later. But it is clearly one of the constraints we operate on, and that was basically sort of guidance we've gotten from previous boards. And then, one of our issues is, as everybody's constrained here, is we've had some vacancies in staff, and that's left us a little short to do things like develop the RFP and sort of actively troll for more customers. But hopefully those things will work their way through as we go. So with that, I think I'm done with this presentation. And one more thing. This just gives you a picture about our agreements. So the white represents agreements that you won't see for more than 3 years. The orange are ones that are expiring in the next 3 years, and the dark orange are the ones we have coming up in the next year. So we have a pretty solid group that are a number of years out, and some that will be churning regularly, just so you have a good picture of where we are with that. Questions? Do you have any questions specifically, either on the presentation or on the globe, on items 16, 17, or 18?
I believe Mr. Moss has some questions. I was going to ask a quick one, and then I'll hand it over to you, sir. It's my understanding that the California Public Utilities Commission has some regulatory authority over Ethernet. Is that accurate?
I'm going to have to look into that more. I know they have, when I explored it before, I was told their authority really was over on telephone piece service, not Ethernet. So that's what I want to go back and look at.
It's your understanding, though, that we are compliant with all regulations associated with our fiber optic network?
Yes. At this point, that is my understanding, but is one I will look into and get back to you on.
I appreciate that. Mr. Moss?
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. It's very helpful. It sets the context, and I understand better how this all fits in. I do have some sort of global comments, questions, opening for dialogue, but I also have some specifics. So let me start with the specifics. And basically, price adjustment. What's your, and I think that the correction to the master agreement makes a lot of sense, and it resolves the issue of the contradiction. So that, I'm glad to see that. But in the IRUs, you're saying that the adjustment is going to occur at each extension or upon renewal based upon market rate. Market rate's not defined in the IRUs. It's not defined in the master agreement. So I wanted to get a little bit better sense from you. What is that process for determining market rate?
Well, excuse me. Basically, market rate is determined by the prices that successful negotiated contracts we have with our customers, and also from our tweaking of prices. Matt mentioned the three-tiered structure, and there was about a year or so ago we adjusted that tiered structure in terms of the mileage charges to increase the revenues at the lower end of that tier, because we were really not getting what we could out of that. So we made the adjustments at that time, and customers that got renewed after that point were brought up to the current tiered pricing level. So the prices that we're currently charging based on our minimums and our tiers, combined with successful contract negotiations that we've completed and had contracts with.
So is it an internal process then that you are, or are you going to outside contractors? Are you doing, some sort? Are you commissioning some sort of rate survey? How do you do that?
As Matt mentioned, we approximately every couple of years we've done a price survey. We haven't found those to be particularly helpful because in the industry, pricing is very secretive. The other providers don't want you to know what their prices are. They don't want to give away any of those types of secrets that you could use as competitive advantage. And a lot of times the customers are not allowed to reveal their pricing, but we do on occasion have intelligence about what those pricing levels are, particularly in contracts that we've lost. All of my engineers the two engineers that work on these contracts follow up with the customers to find out why we didn't get a particular bid or estimate that we put out, and what the competitors were offering, to the extent that they can tell us. We get that information after the fact, and even on contracts we win, we take their pulse as to what their pricing levels were for other competitors.
So there's a certain amount of subjectivity to the resetting of the market rate, and moreover, if you're doing it every time a one-year agreement rolls over, at what point do you advise the customer what the new market rate is going to be? Let's say that they have an October 31st renewal date or November 1st renewal date. When do you contact them and say, oh, by the way, your new market rate is X?
Well, we usually start, because of the lengthy contract approval processes we go through, we try to start that at least 6 months or so ahead of the expiration date.
So on a one-year agreement, every 6 months, you're looking at the market rate again?
We start the ball rolling then, and we start probably talking to the customer several months ahead of the expiration.
Well, let me propose a different kind of system. What if you were to go to a simple cost of living adjustment or CPI provision in your leases and say that once every 5 years, we're going to true it up based upon what we call the market rate, but in between those 5 years, on every anniversary date, we'll just change the contract according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI number. Wouldn't that be a lot easier, and wouldn't that save a lot of staff time?
Well, that would be easy. However, prices in the industry, as Matt mentioned, for particularly Ethernet lit type services, actually decline over time. I mean, you can go out and get a high-speed broadband connection today much cheaper than you could 2 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever. Those don't have that nice linear cost increase. The equipment improves, the price performance improves, and you get actually lower cost to provide the circuit, and you get competition, so the prices actually come down at a given bandwidth level. And it's the same in the back-end transport business that we run. That's for the lit service like Metro Ethernet.
So when you're adjusting the market rate, then has it been your experience that you've been reducing prices every time you adjust the market rate?
We typically don't reduce the pricing because unless the customer is requesting that from us, or not wanting to renew their IRU because they've got a better deal somewhere. We typically look at whether we should adjust up, but typically the prices remain stable because our costs have actually gone down after the initial term, and because the prices in the industry tend to come down. In the case of dark fiber, our prices are stable, and the prices in the industry are fairly stable because that product is unique in that it's basically physical infrastructure from one point to another, and it's governed by the equipment that the customer puts on each end. So they can upgrade their equipment to a better price performance model, a higher bandwidth model, and have additional bandwidth on the same fiber.
Have you tried cost of living adjustment in the agreements?
No, that's not the procedures that were in place.
Actually, I think before you came, as I recall, we did have some where in the past where that was, because I remember that was something that even in the adjustment box was there. What we found was that was something that most customers, given the costs that they were facing, particularly for dark fiber, their investment cost, and that knowing that there wasn't any real increase in cost for us each year related to that fiber once it's done, we're pretty resistant to. It was not something that went over well in the market.
Well, I guess let me give more of the global stuff. I think that your recommendations for future direction make a lot of sense, and I think you're identifying some really good issues. My concern on a going forward basis is we should not, in my opinion, enter into any long-term contracts until we've got this all worked out. So you've got several contracts here that are 20-year terms, and if we're going to be looking at the 2-year payback rule, we're going to be looking at how we're doing the pricing, which I'm still not satisfied about, on a going forward basis. What's the benefit of locking up long-term contracts at this time when it appears that we're in a state of flux?
There are a couple that I think are important. One is, at least in both of these cases, we're talking about existing customers. Second, who have built competitive businesses based on this, and their ability to go out and market to other customers becomes very important that they have some stability. Now, we always have, and this is something we talked about with the board, and this was a change a few years ago, was we always have a relatively short-term ability to terminate. So if we came back and said, okay, we're doing a major change in how we're doing our IRU pricing changes, which in the master agreement basically is at our sole discretion on how we do it, right? It's got language very clearly in there that it's our sole discretion. If we were to come back and say that there was something and they really were unhappy, they could exercise a 180-day exit. We could exercise a 180-day exit if we wanted to do a major structural change. And so we feel like we've protected ourselves in terms of our ability to deal with that, but still give the kind of certainty the market needs for the dark fiber kinds of agreements. And that's, I think we've sort of covered the risk both ways and done something, presented something that's very viable for the business users who are our customers, where they're trying to provide as a service, provide competitive service provider to others.
Mr. Nichols?
Yeah, I wonder if I might interject both a comment and a question here that might go towards the Commissioner's question and perhaps what you're discussing here, and that is, it seems to me that we have two issues that are facing us. We have agreements with some long-standing users that we have right now. We have a past practice of what we have done, and we have decisions on what we might want to do going forward as we go out into the market. And what I'm hearing you say, Commissioner, is the cost of going through and periodically doing market updates and such is a burden on us in parts. Indeed it is. There's costs associated with this. I could see a circumstance by which some of these smaller agreements would say it's such a difficulty to go through to do some of that update that we'll just let it ride. I could see that, to be frank. I could see that, and that might not be a bad business decision given the size of the contract versus the level of effort it takes. And as Matt has indicated, absent a significant level of effort at times because of the relative keeping close to the chest that most of the other parties do in this market, on the private side we may not, without a fair amount of effort, get a quick, good, solid outlook of what the market is. Now, am I mischaracterizing you, Matt, on that?
No, not at all.
So one of the ways to deal with this on a go-forward basis, new deals, I guess is what I'm trying to characterize, is to set something like we're going to set our terms, and we're going to set our terms with the CPI, and we're going to still reserve for ourselves some periodic period of time to do a market assessment on these, because if things get out of whack, we can make an adjustment that could be up or it could be down, because there are termination rights on behalf of the counterparty as well on some of these agreements. So it would seem that getting some instruction to us to undertake that type of a structure on a go-forward basis might not be a bad way to go, and it's separating out, taking action on these things that are pending before us versus what we have on looking on a go-forward basis. So I guess that's kind of a thought that I have in terms of what I'm hearing you saying. I'm trying to see whether that would meet your interests and concerns, Commissioner, and then I guess I would invite Matt and Ken to comment whether I'm ignoring a key issue that should be addressed before we consider that, before the board would consider that.
No, I mean, I think that is very reasonable. The only potential concern I have is, and this may be something where there may be some other indices that would be better than CPI to look at, much like when we were talking about the steel contract, there were some specific indices that may give us a better picture of that we should look at. So I'd like to do a little research specifically on what kind of indexing might be most appropriate for that, but I think that may be a direction we could go.
Well, go ahead. I was going to ask you a question, but...
No, I was just going to throw out something for the future. One of the things you can determine is market rate, and define it as determined by DWP.
Yeah. Well, and actually, the master agreement has language very much
because,
to that effect.
I mean, we'll determine what it is, and if it's acceptable, fine. If it's not acceptable, they don't have to renew. Or if they're stuck to the market rate, then it just rolls over. But when you get convoluted and you talk about the consumer price index or things like that, I understand exactly what you're saying. It may go down. It's not a fair, perhaps, ruler to determine what the rate should be, but I just make it very simple, as determined by DWP. And then we can go out and use whatever way we want to measure it.
The language that's in there says that we shall have sole discretion on the chosen methodology for calculating and implementing this market rate adjustment. So, and that could be put into effect even on existing prior use. So then, if we just decide this is the way we ought to be targeting those on the fiber leases, because they are different markets. You know, there's a relationship between the Ethernet market and the dark fiber market. But, you know, that's something that could be, we basically have the legal authority in the agreement to do that today.
So, Mr. Brown, if we were to maybe follow the logic of Mr. Nichols' suggestion and approve the opportunities in front of us, but then in the next few months or so change our policy or have the board set a new policy for these kinds of contracts, would we be okay to exercise 180-day termination of these agreements we're approving today, or are we going to somehow be
Well, if you have the unfettered right to terminate, you certainly can exercise that.
But we actually wouldn't need to necessarily. If we're changing the IRU renewal, what policy that we would apply for that market rate, that's entirely within our authority under the existing agreement. If they weren't happy with it, they could exercise the 180-day termination provision, but we would not need to because we already have that sole discretion for choosing the method of market adjustment.
That's right. Okay.
Ms.
I have
Noonan?
nothing further.
Do you have a question?
No, but I appreciate the educational background. This is very, very helpful.
Commissioner Moss, you have been tracking this very closely. Are you moved to make a motion at this time?
No, I'm not.
So you're not for items 17 and 18?
16,
16, 17, and 18?
Yeah, no, I'm not inclined to make a motion at this time.
All right. Commissioner Noonan, are you inclined to make a motion at this time?
Well, I would be curious to hear what recommendations would need to be implemented for you to approve the contracts, because perhaps we could...
I just have a problem entering into a 20-year contract knowing that we're going to be changing the policy around. I think that's a little underhanded. I mean, you can't say to these people, these are the terms of the contract today, but knowing that I'm going to be pushing in the next 3 months or so for a change to the policy, I mean, this is not a core business of the DWP. So I think it's sort of like the solar incentive program. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's not go, off and do things in the wrong way. So I would not feel comfortable contracting with these people on a 20-year basis when I would be my position that we would want to cancel the contract and start over again.
I have the perspective in that these contracts really are a small piece of the puzzle, and I understand, the infrastructure that was created and the many reasons why it was. I do think that we should try and be competitive, but do you think? I understand your statement that it really cannot defer from being a 20-year contract. I would imagine that they're listening or will get apprised of the potential changes that will happen to the program. So, I mean, I do feel like we are being transparent and that they do know there is a lease termination.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm uncomfortable doing that.
All right. Well,
we already have the right to adjust to market rate.
No,
that's not a change to the existing conditions. Actually, it's in our agreements as they sit. The question we're sort of grappling with here is what the market rate should be, and shouldn't it have an automatic escalation based on CPI or some other measure?
Well, that's one issue, but I think that the time has come to review all these contracts, and I don't think we should be entering into long-term contracts when we should be looking at the program and seeing what the best thing is for the DWP long-term. That's just my own personal opinion.
So let me just try to, would you be more comfortable if these masters were at this point limited to 5 years?
Yes, I would be at this point.
It would be, I think it might be instructive to let the commissioners know, you anticipate whether the counterparties, not all these are 20-year.
Well, there's a master agreement, and then there are the IRUs. I don't think any of these IRUs are longer than 5, right? No. So the IRUs for the individual fiber are 5-year agreements. The master is basically setting our terms and conditions under which we would entertain additional IRUs.
I appreciate that, but I'm saying that it would be my desire to review the entire program and make sure that we're doing this and executing this correctly. And I'm not comfortable entering into 20-year agreements at this point until I know that we've completed that process.
So, Commissioner Moss, so I understand your position on this. If there were a motion in support of 16, 17, and 18, you would either abstain or vote no?
That's correct at this time.
I just want to make certain that we're not talking past one another on this, because I think it's an important consideration. The existing master agreement, is it an agreement that's in place today among these parties, or not?
I think Globecast expires in the spring. SohoNet is expired. We're operating under a short-term situation with them. The concern for both these companies is they are competitive providers, and if they don't feel they have a stable environment, they have a problem competing in the marketplace. So I think that is the issue, whether a master, if we shorten the master, but they knew they had the 5-year, it was the 5-year term period on the IRUs, would they still be comfortable with it? We'd have to go back and tell them, generally speaking, because of the investments they have to put on the fiber, they want some comfort that there's some longer-term expectation.
Well, listen, I understand that this is creating a bit of a problem. I mean, I'm respectful of that. Let's do this. Let's defer this to the next board meeting. I would make that motion.
All right. And may I ask the sense from our information folks, what do you think the response with the vendors would be to postponement until December 6th?
I think this process has been going on for a while, particularly with SohoNet, and it's really makes us look bad if we can't execute a contract with them.
I think may I make a comment at this point?
Sure.
I think that might be the best case scenario, given the constellation of commissioners that are currently present, would be to defer the vote until December 6th.
Okay.
We need 3 votes to pass.
Right, you need 3 votes to pass. So we have 3 commissioners and 1 is not.
So there is a
2 to 1 doesn't.
There is a motion currently to defer. Is there a second for items 16, 17, and 18?
Second.
All right. The items 16, 17, 18 are deferred to the next DWP meeting on December 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is item 19.
Item 19 is a request to enter into agreements with Wells Fargo Bank and Royal Bank of Canada for them to provide liquidity support for the 2001 Series B power system variable rate debt of $580.8 million. The agreements are for 3 years, and there's an annual cost of about $2.6 million. We believe that having the variable rate debt instead of long-term fixed rate saves us about $11.3 million per year.
And our discussion from the commission? Mr. Moss? Ms. Noonan?
I have nothing.
No, I want to commend General Manager Nichols. I know that since you've been with the department, you really have found a lot of creative financial mechanisms to save money for the department, so I applaud that.
Well, let me be clear in this. All I appreciate that it's Ann and her staff that have taken this effort up and pushing forward on always consistently watching our opportunities, and I'm pleased that we have financial services organization that is on the ball on these issues.
Well, I applaud the two of you as well as your team.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Item 19 passes. Thank you very much. Item 20.
Item 20, back in July of earlier this year, the civil grand jury did a report that included some items on the Department of Water and Power. It was addressed to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. Staff has prepared some responses for your approval. This is your response. We have not went through the report and rebutted on everything that they said. We just took a look at their findings and recommendations, and we've provided you with some wording to see if that is consistent with the way you would want to respond to the civil grand jury.
Thank you very much. Do the commissioners have comments related to the civil grand jury report and response?
I do.
Commissioner Noonan, please.
I just think it's going to be very difficult to find the proper words to respond to issues that I personally have concerns with. And specifically, I'll go to board response to finding number 8. I've stated several times, I've requested several times to see, our union payroll compared to that of other municipalities. It's a request that's been made by other commissioners on the board, yet that information has not been provided. This draft talks about a report on the department's salary and benefits compared with the industry. I haven't seen that, so if that exists, I'd like to see a copy of it. Making such matter-of-fact statements like the unions are not involved in department management, I hope not, but at the same token, since this is such a serious document, I am concerned about signing my name without truly knowing 100% or not how things work internally.
Mr. Moss?
I think a couple of things. Question, do we have any deadline in responding back to this? Is there any reason that we need to approve it or disapprove it today?
It doesn't have to be approved today. There was actually a deadline that's come and gone.
Yes, I thought that was the case.
There's a statutory deadline of 3 months that was initially in place. We sought an extension and received from the presiding judge of the Superior Court 30 additional days. That came and went, and we sent correspondence both to the court and to the jury foreperson about that additional time is required here for consideration. And we said that we pledged to keep them apprised of the processing of the court's response.
What was the reason for the delay?
Counselor, could you identify yourself?
My name is Frederick Merkin, outside counsel assisting the city attorney. The reason was that there was just not enough time to perform the analysis and consideration by this board, and that's what we presented to the court and the jury foreperson.
Well, with all due respect, we constitute the board, and I think this is the first time that we've seen these responses as part of this board letter, so we didn't craft them. So if there was a delay, it wasn't caused by the necessity of the board to have to consider the matter, because we're only considering it for the first time right now. I personally would like to see the full board review this. We might even want to set up some sort of ad hoc subcommittee. It's Mr. Sales' call, but I agree with Commissioner Noonan. This is putting our imprimatur on these responses, and I'm personally not comfortable with the wordsmith. Although, I think I appreciate whoever did draft them. They did a credible job, but I don't think they expressed my voice on these matters. So I would move to defer.
Well, thank you for that motion, and will be considered in a few minutes. I just want to comment on some of the substance of the grand jury findings. On finding number 3, that asserts that the Board of Water Power Commissioners are placed on this board due to political contributions. I candidly find that really hyperbolic and somewhat absurd. On grand jury finding number 2, where they say that the turnover has harmed the efficacy of this body, I candidly would agree, and I know that the person who drafted the responses to the grand jury stated as much. On finding number 5, on reciprocity, that this program has harmed DWP's bottom line and that we have not fully received pension contributions from City Hall to the DWP retirement system. It's absolutely true, and I very much appreciate the fact that the grand jury had that finding. On number 16, this is one that troubled me, and this concerns the on the question of transparency of our commitments on our renewable portfolio standard and our demand-side management. And the document says that we agree that we haven't been transparent, and I have to be candid with you. I strongly disagree with that
You're being
assertion.
transparent now.
I am being transparent. We issue monthly RPS reports that are available to the public. We are a public utility. There are multiple layers of oversight that are associated with the decisions in this for this utility. And of course there's room for improvement, but that's a very different conclusion than we have not been transparent. And then I personally found that the tone of union bashing to be incredibly unhelpful, and I just want to state publicly that I found that to be very politically driven and divisive, and I would not want to. I would want this body to state that we don't find that kind of framing very helpful in this city. So those are some of my overall comments associated with the findings. But you know, Commissioner Moss, I completely agree with you. I would very much want to hear what President Sales would have to say on this matter, as well as the Vice President Holloman. So, are you seeking a second to your motion?
I do have one speaker card for this item.
Yes.
Okay.
And may the speaker come forward, Mr. Wilkinson. Now, Tony, the last time you stepped to the podium, you weren't wearing glasses. So I think you can see us now.
Yes, I can. This is the item for which the response was not available online, because I can't see. I can't see what's in the response. But in general, if I remember correctly, as I read through the grand jury report, I had the same conflicted feelings that Commissioner Noonan had. In other words, there's some items in here that I think everybody would agree with, but at the same time, I also thought that the tone was unhelpful, as Commissioner Parker has said, in some respects. To me, it's this board that controls these issues, and I took a little bit of, a little bit of offense, to tell you the truth, for the grand jury dealing with these issues as if the board didn't exist. And in particular, though, if I remember correctly, there's one area that I thought needs absolutely to be dealt with, and that was the attempt to deal with the City of Los Angeles city sovereign water rights, and basically attempt to grab them into a regional entity. And I thought that was very dangerous, and that needs to be addressed directly.
Very much appreciate your comments. Very thoughtful. And earlier, Mr. Wilkinson, you testified, well, you gave some testimony to the effect that some of our links and materials were not present online, and you have, I think, a commitment from the general manager to immediately look into that and try to rectify those matters. So, thank you. So there is a motion currently
Second.
And it is seconded, and there's unanimous agreement to defer this matter. I think the December 6th meeting might be a little already weighted with many items, so perhaps we can look to the new year to look to the grand jury report. Is that acceptable, Counselor?
Yes.
It may be, okay.
Thank you,
Marvin asked the question.
Thank you, City Attorney Brejevich. All right. And thank you for your time, Mr. Merkin. And we have already addressed item number 21. That brings us to agenda item 22, which are the board letters. We will deem them filed. And Mr. City Attorney?
We do have item number 5, the minutes that we held on the desk, and I believe, though, because of the 2 minutes, we may not be able to approve either of them at this point because of who was at what meeting.
That's correct. Yeah, we simply don't have a quorum to approve the minutes, so they'll be held over to a future meeting. So item 5 will be held over. So, Mr. City Attorney.
At this point, we will recess in a closed session, and in accordance with the California Government Code, we'll report any final reportable action.
Thank you. We are